We are going to request our very own Mr. Humphrey Jao to come forward and lead us with an opening prayer. Jao, please.
Thank you. I request that we all be upstanding for a word of prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before thy presence this morning with thanksgiving in our hearts. We bless you, we exalt you, we give you all the glory. You are a good God, you are our Father. We thank you because of your goodness. We thank you because of your loving kindness. This day you have bestowed upon us the gift of life. We don't take it for granted. We thank you. We bless you for this wonderful day, this meeting. We've been planning it. We know that planning is to man, but to accomplish only belongs to you, Jehovah. So we are thankful and grateful that you have brought it to accomplishment, Jehovah Father. We thank you even as we start and as we begin our AGMs this day. We commit them before you. We thank you, dear Lord, for our board of trustees. We thank you for the secretariat. We thank you for every member. We thank you, dear Lord, even for the sponsor, dear Lord, who is KenGen, dear Father. We bless you. We glorify you, even as we continue to speak blessings. And we pray that, Jehovah Father, our boundaries will continue being enlarged by you because you are a gracious Father. We thank you and we bless you. As we begin, dear Father, we pray that, Jehovah Father, every session will be full of your presence. We pray that you're going to guide us, you're going to lead us, and you're going to take charge and control. We worship you and we honor you as we surrender everything unto you and into your able hands. In Jesus' name, we do pray and do give thanks. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Humphrey, for word of prayer. So let me take this opportunity to welcome everyone who has come, our guests, our board of trustees. You are welcome to Eastern Region for the AGM for the RBS. I would also wish to welcome all of us, the staff that have come from various stations to Matendeni. You are welcome. And like we have said, it is very important to have this meeting because what we are discussing is very, very important. It is about life after retirement. As we say, now that you are working, now that you are strong, you are able to do so many things for yourself. But you can imagine when you have grown older, when you have retired, you need to be in a scheme that you are sure of, that in future, after retirement, you are going to be a happy person, you are going to be comfortable, you can get good medical health when you have retired and all that. And that is why we say this is very, very important scheme that we are in. So before we continue, I would wish to welcome Agri Haligura to give us the safety brief. Welcome, Agri.
The chairpersons of the two schemes, the trustees, including our Madam CEO, invited guests, including service providers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Allow me to take you through a quick safety brief, as is our norm in KenGen, extended to RBS. I'll handle three topics. We are currently in Matendeni grounds. In the event of any emergency, we are prepared. If it's medical, we have St. John's ambulance backed up by trained first aiders from KenGen. They are all in a uniform, St. John's ambulance. We have an ambulance on my right, just on the left of your gate. In case you need any assistance, will be assisted. In the event of a fire or any other non-medical related, we will be announced and will be guided appropriately. There could be a few trip hazards in the venue, the stairs, and a few steps at the floor. Let's all be careful. We're in the era of COVID, and as we've heard, we're almost approaching what is stated to be a fourth wave. Let's all be safe. Let's have our masks on. In the event your mask is rendered unusable, we have extra masks at the Secretariat desk. Please be assisted. We have enough washing points and sanitizers, some on the tables, on our tables, and some just right outside at the washing places. In case you need, please, let's keep sanitizing. Our tables have been arranged to afford us social distance. Please, let's keep the social distance as required. We have stated we have adequate places to wash our hands. Please do so as frequently as you need. We have also provided for places of convenience, otherwise called executive chambers of release. For the VIPs, right behind here, we have provided an entrance and exit just at the on my far left. For the rest of us, we use this door. On the left, we have some places of convenience. Feel free. We may have some cables running around. I've mentioned earlier. Let's be observant as we walk. Otherwise, we want to wish you a very safe event. Let us stay safe, both from COVID and another physical injury. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Agri, for the safety brief. We have been avoiding to climb the stair here, but the ICT team says that we need to be up here, so I hope you understand. Agri has talked about our team. We have our first aiders, and they are very smart. I would wish to have them stand up. They are smart. Ebu simameni, our first aiders, muonekane na wageni wetu. Aya, tuwapatie makofi mazuri. Our first aiders wako chonjo kabisa in case of anything. Thank you, you can sit. For now, I would wish to take this opportunity to welcome our very own, our regional manager, so that he takes up the rest of the program. Engineer Julius Odube, and I forgot to say my name. My name is Penina Budhi, aka CLO. Mmekaribishwa.
God is good, and all the time. Yes, it is cold, but we are not cold. Our hearts are very warm. I think feel at home in the Eastern region. Can we give a round of applause to our MCs for the good job they have done so far? And in anticipation of the good work they are going to do for the rest of the day. So our list, our VIPs, led by our own MD and CEO and trustee, Madam Rebecca Miano, the DB scheme chairman, Mr. John Sitati, the DC scheme chairman, Mr. Ernest Nadome, our trustee and HR director, Mr. Abraham Serem, our trustee and director, Madam Mary Maalu, trustee and director, Mr. David Mwangi, trustee, Mr. Peter Mutemi, trustee, Patrick Kememia, trustee, CPA Charles Masio, trustee, engineer Asaria Onsoti, our CEO and trust secretary, Mr. Josephat Muriuki, the RBS secretariat team, the Eastern Region AGM preparation team, Eastern Region members of staff in attendance physically here, our viewers who are attending virtually, our strong team of service providers, Britam, Coop Trust, ICA Lyon, Old Mutual, Coop Bank, Zamara NCBA Bank, and the RBA representative, Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. I want to welcome you warmly to the Eastern region, which is one of the, actually this is the mother of KenGen. KenGen started as a hydro generating company, but right now we are known more for other things than hydro. But you see, the mother is always supreme. So we are honored, and we thank the trustees for choosing Eastern region to host this event. And we want to say that we feel honored, and we wish that this would become a permanent home to host these retirement benefits AGMs, because as the other speakers have said, retirement is where we go after we stop working, when we become vulnerable and when we need support. So I hope that request will form an agenda at the next meeting that the RBS will do. Consider it kindly. I just want to mention a few issues before I hand over. This AGM is a hybrid, and from the information I have is that it's one of the most well-attended AGMs, with 700 members who have logged in virtually, and over 200 members who are here physically. So we really thank the Secretariat for doing this, and this is because of the good work they are doing. When you see people taking an interest in an organization, it's because of the good work they do. The interest has really arisen, and this was evident even when we did the elections for the trustees. There's a lot of awareness, courtesy of the good work they have done. So can we appreciate them? Through the same good work they have done, we are happy to note, and I must thank you on behalf of the members, the feedback we get from our members. They are able to get their benefits very fast. Actually, it is seamless. People leave the service, and the next month they are on the spot. In fact, they don't see any change. And I think this feedback we receive from the ground, because as operational people, if there are complaints, they'll first arrive to us because we are the people the staff know. So I want to really appreciate the good work you are doing. This morning at breakfast, I met one of my staff, and there's something we did for them over the weekend, and I told him that we never got any feedback. Then he said, no, we only give feedback if things are bad. If things are good, if we don't give feedback, it means everything is okay. But for me, I want to really appreciate the work you are doing. You are doing a very good work, although people are not giving feedback because they are okay. So the other thing I want to mention is that through the good work the board and the secretary have done, the scheme has grown tremendously over the last 5 years. Now the total scheme value is around 16B and still growing. So we want to really commend you. We want to say that we really take that to heart. We don't take it for granted. Please continue working and saving for us. The Secretariat, under the leadership of our very able CEO and Trust Secretary, you have done a good work. And I just want to mention 3 things that you are very strong at. Very strong at information sharing, very strong at good governance, which we saw with the very transparent, democratic, and fair elections that were done, and people are very happy. And you are very customer-focused to serve your people. Those are very 3 key ingredients of an organization that is ready to take up the challenges that are coming up, and we really commend you for that. I want now to, as I hand over, to really appreciate the team that made this day a success. When we started these meetings on 7th June 2021, we were just having a vision of how this will be. But 3 physical meetings and 6 virtual meetings later, we have an AGM. And I really want to commend the team that organized this, and I would want them to rise up as I cite some of the things they did. The organizing committee, both from Eastern and from Nairobi, the RBA Secretariat, it is a team of 23 plus, and they did a very good job holding all those meetings under very difficult circumstances, and they have been able to deliver an event like no other. I may not have the time to introduce them by name, but I want you to feel very special for the very good work you have done. Out of those total of 9 meetings, I was the chair. I only chaired 2 meetings. The other meetings were chaired by my team, who rotated the chairmanship. So Madam MD and CEO, they took over my job as chair, so I became a chairman general. Because all of them are calling each other chair. I say, okay, fine, you have taken my job, I have no problem, I'll become chairman general. So thank you so much, team. You did it. Yes, we can. Count it done. Yes, that's what we say here. We always do it. When we are given a task, ni kuchapa kazi tu. Asanteni, sit down. Can we appreciate them? Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor to welcome the DB scheme chairman and our KenGen director, Director Joseph Zitati, to take over the meeting and steer us ahead. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a very blessed meeting. Asanteni sana.
Good morning, everyone. I think since I am suitably far from everyone, to prevent the misting of my glasses, I shall take off my mask. Otherwise, I shall be fogging over all the time. Good morning, members, fellow trustees, secretariat, ladies and gentlemen. I am Joseph Zitati, chairman of the KenGen Staff Retirement Scheme, popularly known as the DB scheme. On behalf of the KenGen Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme Board of Trustees, I hereby welcome you to the KenGen Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme 21st Annual General Meeting for the year ended 31st of December 2020. Before we get started, kindly let me take this opportunity to request that we stand and observe 1 minute of silence in honor of our fellow members and retirees who have left us during the pandemic. Please rise. Right, thank you very much. You may have your seats. I believe we'll need a mic. May I now call upon the Trust Secretary to advise if we have a quorum?
Good morning, everyone. Chairman, we have currently 114 members attending physically from Eastern Hydros, and virtually we currently have 329 members joining. Hence, we have a quorum to start this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. A quorum hence being formed, I declare the meeting to be properly convened. Rules of the meeting. Please now allow me to run through a few house rules, as our session today is being hosted both physically and virtually. For those joining us virtually, you may raise your hand virtually and share your queries and comments on the chat section throughout the meeting. For those with us here, we shall pass the microphone to take any of your questions. Kindly note, we shall address all questions and inquiries during the question and answer session at the tail end of this meeting. There is also an engagement session in the form of a poll. We encourage those attending virtually to participate once the same is opened. For those attending physically, I believe you already have been issued with your poll form together with the annual report. Kindly fill and drop the form at the registration desk. The ushers are also on standby to assist with this process. We look forward to an interactive and informative session that we hope will leave you prepared for your retirement and more knowledgeable of your retirement kitty. Board Trust Secretary, could you kindly share the first poll?
Thank you. IT, please press the first poll. Chair, this is a question that is going to members attending virtually, and the members attending physically, they have the questionnaire. And we look forward to check our members' major financial obligations at retirement or during retirement, that is from the age of 60. Majorly, first answer being, is your major financial obligation family dependents, or is it loans, or is it rent, or is it Medicare, or none of the above? And members joining virtually, kindly, we are expecting you to answer this question as we are waiting. We give you some few seconds. So we are asking, what do you think will be, or is your major financial obligation at or during retirement, and majorly from the age 60 plus? Family of dependents, is it loans, is it family rent, is it Medicare, or is it none of the above? We will give them some few seconds. Family dependents, loans, maybe SACCO loans, maybe bank loans. Is it payment of rent? Is it Medicare in retirement? Or is it something different from the above? And I hope we have gotten the outcome. Can you share, Chair, the outcome? Chair, from the output, you can see the major financial obligation is Medicare at 64%. Family dependence still remains also another financial obligation. We have loans at 4%. Rent seems not to be an issue of concern, and maybe some about 7% which has not been listed. This will assist us as we prepare our members for retirement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that feedback. So we can see that Medicare is definitely a concern that we will look at going into the future, and we have some solutions for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge the presence of my fellow trustees and kindly allow me to introduce them to you. Trustees, I'll ask you to wave as I introduce you. I will start with our very own Ms. Rebecca Miano, sponsor appointed. She's also the CEO and Managing Director of our great organization. I then have Mr. Abraham Serem, who's an Executive Director, sponsor appointed. I have Ms. Mary Malu, another Executive Director, sponsor appointed. I have Ms. Elizabeth Njenga, an Executive Director, sponsor appointed, who unfortunately is not with us because she's attending the Trustee Development Program of Kenya training, which we have all attended. So you know we are following the protocols of the RBA. Clap for her in absentia. I then have Mr. Ernest Nadome, member elected, who's also the co-chair, my co-chair on the Defined Contribution Scheme. I have Mr. Peter Mutemi, who is member appointed as well. And finally, I have Mr. Patrick Kimemia, who's a member representative trustee and very active with the pensioners. And I am Joseph Sitati, board chairman, nominated by the sponsor KenGen and also a non-executive director of the main board. Allow me to also introduce the CEO and Trust Secretary, Mr. Josephat Muriuki, who is also here with us today. I'll also take this opportunity to now introduce our service providers who are present. Members, we have with us professional service providers who have dedicated their overwhelming support to the board. Also present is our representatives from the Retirement Benefits Authority, the industry regulator. I will request them to stand up as I am introducing them. And please correct me if I get any names wrong. I'll start with the RBA, Mr. John Muli, Actuarial Officer, and Judy Minor. Please stand up and wave. Here they are. Thank you very much. We have investment managers. First from Britam, we have Ms. Emma Mugo and Mr. Victor Koech. We then have Corp Trust Investment Services, Mr. David Odwori. We have the custodian from NCBA Bank, Ms. Eva Mwangi. We have the administrators from Zamari Actuaries and Administrators, Mr. Moses Otieno. And finally, last but not least, we have our auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Mr. Job Ngunu. Right, to run the day-to-day operations of the scheme and serve you better, the board has a dedicated team, and I hereby call upon the Trust CEO and Trust Secretary to introduce his team.
Thank you, Chairman. I request my team members who can be able to come in front. I introduce them first, and they can start per department. First, please. We are young. We should be seen to have energy. Please start per department. Thank you, Chair. We will start with the investment. We have Hannah Ngohi, you can wave, with Evelyn Mwangi. Chair. And pension, we have 3 staff. We have Purity Kamau, Albert Anam, Charlene. Thank you. Under finance, we have Gloria Kikete, we have Rashid Kanywa and Malaka. Thank you. ICT, they are working there hard. Peter Miano and Lawrence. Thank you. Under property, we have Anthony Mangeli. And in our facility, LBS Garden, we have the facility manager, Faith. Thank you. In procurement, we have a great team of Billy Oliki. Thank you. And in administration, we have Mary and Jane. Thank you. Sure, this is the team I work with. Thank you. Thank you, team.
Let's have a proper round of applause for that team. We are here because of them today. Thank you. TS, I'll request you to now read the notice convening the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. I will read the notice. I would want to confirm that this notice was circulated on 30th of June 2021, and it's within the guidelines of the good governance guidance by the LBA and also the scheme board charter. And I read the notice. Notice hereby given that the annual general meeting for KenGen Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme, the DB scheme, will be held at Matenden Sport Cloud and streamed via Zoom on 30th July 2021 from 10 a.m. The meeting, expected to start at 10 a.m., will have the following agenda: to read the notice convening the meeting, what I'm currently doing, to receive the chairman's report, to receive fund manager's report, to receive custodian report, to receive administrator's report, to receive a scheme audited financial statement for the period ended 31st December 2020, together with auditor's report thereon, to receive LBA remarks. We will also have a question and answer session and any other business which notice has been given, and closing remarks. So this AGM is a hybrid AGM where members from Eastern Hydros are joining physically and other members are joining virtually. This by the order of the board, done by myself, the CEO and the Trust Secretary, Josephat Muriuki, on 29th June 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bwana Trust Secretary. We now review item number 6 of the agenda on the scheme's audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2020. Dear members, it is my honor to present to you my report for the financial year ended 31st December 2020, this being the 21st annual general meeting, which makes me note the fulfilling journey of service to you and many others who have worked in the sponsors company before. We began by serving 1,354 active members in the year 2000, and looking back 2 decades later, while the scheme has undergone tremendous changes such as closing entry to new members, hence resulting in a significant reduction of active contributors, the number of beneficiaries supported by the scheme has, however, steadily grown over the years. As at this reporting period, the scheme beneficiaries are 1,071. Members, we cannot ignore the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic, which has had a profound impact to the economy, and to say the least, to our everyday life. With approximately shillings 7.920 billion in net assets as of December 31st, 2020, the scheme assets experienced a marginal downward devaluation of 0.71% in the last 12 months, mainly reflecting the negative effects of market volatility caused by the pandemic. The key factors that influenced the scheme's performance during the year were reduced forecasted global GDP growth of -4.3% and estimated contracted local GDP growth by -1%. The 12-month inflation of 5.62%, the Kenya shilling depreciated by 8%, the overall interest rate yield curve fell by an average of 0.21%, the equities market, the NSE 20 share index, closing loss of -29.6%, and in real estate, the office space absorption reduced by 50%, attributed to an oversupply of space and ongoing companies' adoption of the working remotely model. Members, despite the instability experienced during the year, as a board, we continue to deliver on our mission and take cognizance of our fiduciary responsibility, and have thus been deliberate in our actions by making informed and accountable decisions to ensure a sustainable organization. In the year 2020, the scheme sold 4 additional units at Roslyn Springs, which is in line with the scheme's objectives of disposing its properties to improve liquidity. Our residential units' rental rates were reviewed downwards to ensure customer retention, and the office block's rental income remained unchanged. We also deployed investment strategies for capital markets instruments that provided liquidity while managing the risk-return objective. In 2020 fiscal year, the following are the board's key focus areas. Corporate governance. Members, the Board of Trustees comprises of highly qualified individuals with diverse skill set, which is crucial in providing the required oversight of scheme assets. During the year, the board undertook an annual board evaluation exercise that resulted in a commendable score of 91.28%. The evaluation is a necessary tool to measure governance, accountability, and to identify areas of improvement while carrying out its mandate. In the same year, Mr. Patrick Kimemia was re-elected for a second and final term of 3 years. He continues to represent the pensioners. Perspective of the scheme's future. Year 2020 financial year gave a positive return despite the unprecedented economic turbulence. We hold the strong belief to capitalize on building an optimal asset allocation that yields capital preservation as well as high returns to our members. This being our second year of the 10-year strategy implementation, we have sustained effort to reduce exposure to property portfolio. We are optimistic that 2021 will present an even better business environment for our investments to thrive and diversify into new liquid offshore and local instruments. In closing, our unwavering commitment to stewardship of secure retirement benefits ensures we are here for our members long after their dedicated careers. To the sponsor, we say thank you for the relentless support. I also extend my gratitude to my colleagues in the board, all professional advisors, the secretariat, and most importantly, you members for working with our leadership during the year 2020 as we drive the commitment to provide sustainable retirement benefits. We would not do this without your support. Thank you. We will now give opportunity to our professional service providers to present their annual report. And we will start with Emma Mugo from Britam, who will present the fund manager's report. Please welcome her.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, members. So I'll take you through the fund manager's report for the year 2020. I'll be doing this in conjunction with the other fund manager whom we manage the scheme with, who is a COP Trust. And to start with, if we could go to the next slide. So we'll begin by speaking briefly on what the role of the fund manager is for the benefit of those who this might be their first AGM. And then we'll also look briefly around how the macroeconomic environment was for 2020, and then look at the investment report and what we see as the outlook going forward. So for the role of the fund manager, we are basically hired by the Board of Trustees as a third-party firm to provide investment advice. And our main role really is to make decisions around where the scheme invests the monies that come through from yourselves, your contributions. So we meet, one of the things we do is advise the trustees on the available investment options. So the options here being the various asset classes, things to do with fixed income, which incorporates things like bonds, deposits, and then we have equities, which are the shares of listed companies, and offshore and private equity, and all those options. So our main job really on a day-to-day basis is to analyze and monitor the markets and see where the fund can invest their monies to make the best return possible. But of course, the other thing to mention is we invest according to the investment policy statement that's drafted for the scheme. So this is to mean that as much as we have leeway to make investment decisions on your contributions, we don't just take your money and invest in wherever we feel that we would want to invest in. So there's a document that's drafted by the Board of Trustees, which is called an investment policy statement. So that document usually outlines what we can or cannot invest in and the limits that we can put for each of those monies. Of course, that investment policy statement is also in line with RBA requirements. So RBA as well has limits and outlines of what pension funds should invest in. So we ensure that whatever we are investing in is in line with that investment policy statement and also in line with the RBA guidelines. The other thing we do as the fund manager of the scheme is analyzing and identifying investment securities. So whenever there is an opportunity to invest in, trustees can request us to analyze it and advise on whether the scheme can invest in. Other than trustees requesting us, we also constantly monitor and engage the market and the region in general to look out for opportunities, and we make sure that we take them through thorough due diligence so that even as we invest in, we ensure that the risks of the scheme are covered. We also construct the portfolio, which just basically means once we decide on the asset classes we're investing in, we deploy the funds there and constantly monitor the scheme. So we ensure that on a day-to-day basis, we have a team of research analysts and portfolio managers who are always on the lookout for anything major that could be changing in the market, and we ensure that your scheme is invested to take advantage of any changes that are happening. So the other thing is we also report to the trustees on a quarterly basis on how we are performing. We also let the trustees know what our strategy is for the coming quarter, and of course if trustees are agreeable to our strategy, then we implement it, and if they have any concerns to raise with regards to the investment actions we are taking, then they raise it during these meetings. And finally, also, we now come and report to you members during the AGM, and we are able to take any questions you might have with regards to the investment assets of the company. I think the other thing to mention is that, again, the assets don't sit with us directly, so the assets sit with a custodian who will also be coming to present. So for us, it's purely just to issue investment instructions, and the custodian then implements those instructions. So moving on to the macroeconomic review. So I think without repeating what the chairman has covered with regards to how the environment was last year, we are all aware of what happened with regards to COVID. And you can see there 2020 GDP growth in Kenya did not do very well. But I think the major thing to focus on is what's our outlook going forward, and it's pretty optimistic for 2021. So the expectation is that with the economies reopening and sectors reopening, then we'll definitely see better economic growth in 2021 than we did in 2020. Of course, we are not blind to the fact that COVID is still a risk, but the expectation is that, of course, as vaccines roll out, then we could definitely see the economy continuing to function despite COVID still being with us. Next is on inflation. Again, the chairman had touched quite a bit on this, but maybe just to clarify for those whom this might be their first AGM. So inflation really is just a measure of to what extent prices increase in the market. So if you hear somebody say inflation is currently at 5%, it means prices right now are 5% higher than they were last year. Again, why we monitor inflation is because it affects the buying power of money. So if you have 100 bob now and 100 bob last year, you'll probably buy less now if inflation is high. And inflation tends to affect things like interest rates, which again affect the valuations of the assets that we hold. So generally, inflation was stable. Prices did not increase very significantly, mostly because the weather was favorable. And the expectation going forward is that there's still a bit of risk, especially if oil prices go up, but generally we expect stable inflation. Next is on interest rates. And interest rates, again, here really is just the cost of money. So how much people are paying to borrow money from others. And what tends to happen is that in a year where interest rates go up, the bonds that you hold in the scheme, the prices of those bonds come down. So you'll find something called unrealized losses in your financial statements. And when interest rates come down, again, bond prices go up. So that is how interest rates affect the holdings that we have of the scheme. So last year, they were generally stable with a slight decline, which was positive for the bond holdings that we are holding. And going forward, the expectation is that, of course, depending on how aggressively the government decides to borrow domestically, they could possibly rise in the short term. But for now, we continue to expect stable interest rates. Next is on the currency. And the currency depreciated by 7.7% against the dollar. Several things determine how our currency behaves. But last year, because of COVID-19, we had a significant drop in things like tourist inflows, which tend to bring in dollars to our economy. And also the fact that because people were taking a lot less risk, we saw some people opting to store their wealth in dollars. So we had a depreciation of 7.7%, but so far this year, the currency has actually done pretty well against the dollar. Going to the next, which is the equities market. So the equities market here really is just the shares that are listed on the NSE index. And these are the shares that you invest in. If you look at the financial statements that you have in the booklets there, you'll see something called equities. So we invest in listed stocks, the likes of Safaricom, KCB, Equity. And of course, what tends to happen is that if their prices come down, then we have to market the holdings that we have. So that affects the scheme's performance because you book something called an unrealized loss. So for last year, the market depreciated by around 8% in 2020. So that again affected the equity holdings that we were holding with regards to performance. So moving on to the next one. So this just shows how we had invested your fund for last year. And of course, you can see the bulk of that remains in property. Then we had 27% in government securities, 9% in equities, 3% in deposits, and a slight amount there of around 0%, or rather close to 0% for corporate bonds. So maybe what to mention here is that we continue to favor less risky assets. So if you look, with the exception of property, of course, which is not under our mandate. So if you look at government securities, they are the bulk of our investments, and these are considered a lot safer because there is less volatility and you're sort of guaranteed of getting the interest from those securities because you've lent to the government. So that's on the asset allocation. And finally, on the outlook, maybe if I could just mention briefly, is that going forward for this year, we are pretty optimistic. We expect that the equity market will do a lot better than it did last year. Actually, currently, as we speak, I think between January to now, the equity market has done around 17%. We also expect interest rates could possibly decline this year. So again, that will be positive for our bond holdings. So overall, in and all, is that we expect better financial performance from our investment assets in 2021 than what we had in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Emma. So she'll present for both fund managers. Next, we're going to have Eva Mwangi from the custodians to give us the custodian report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, trustees, members, pensioners here present, and those online. As you've been told, my name is Eva Mwangi from NCBA Bank. We are the scheme custodian for the retirement benefit scheme. My presentation today will take the following format. I'll give a short brief of what our role is as a custodian to the scheme, and then I'll give you a breakdown of the assets that we are holding under during the financial year under review, and then finally give you a confirmation. So we'll take any questions that you may have during the Q&A session. The next slide, please. So as a custodian, our role first and foremost is to ensure that any investment instructions that you receive from your fund managers are settled in a safe and secure manner. If you're instructed to make a purchase, our role is to ensure that asset is received and credited into the scheme account. If it's a sale, the proceeds from the sale are received and credited into the fund. If you could go back, please. We're also tasked with safekeeping all the assets that the scheme holds. Examples will include your equities, any government securities, deposits, corporate bonds, and also the title documents for the property that you hold. We also facilitate the process of opening your accounts. These accounts are open in our nominee name, meaning that they are ring-fenced, ensuring that all your assets are not commingled with any other assets that we hold for any other clients, neither are they commingled with any other bank assets that the bank holds. We also facilitate the process of collecting all your income. We keep track of all the dividends that are due, any interest payments, and ensure that they're credited into the fund when they're due. We also report to your trustees on a quarterly basis. During these meetings, we do give a detailed breakdown of all the transactions that are processed during the quarter. We also do report to your administrator and our fund manager, as well as make returns to the regulators on a quarterly basis. We also do the payments Should you leave the fund, or rather leave the organization, we'll be given instructions to pay yourselves. And to your pensioners, we also process their payroll payments. We do receive contributions on behalf from your sponsor to the fund. And our job also is to ensure that we safeguard your scheme. And if we sense any danger, we'll whistleblow to the relevant parties. And then finally, we provide what you call proxy voting services. And this is any listed AGMs will be given instructions to go and vote as directed by your, or rather as instructed by your investment managers. So now I'll give a breakdown of the assets that we're holding at the end of the last financial year. We were holding demand deposits valued at 66.5 million shillings. Cash at bank at the end of the year total to 185,775 shillings. We were holding corporate bonds valued at 21.9 million shillings. Quoted equities valued at 701,093,799. Regional equities valued at 718,967. Property, being the bulk of your investments, had a total value of 4.7 billion shillings. Term deposits of 191.2 million shillings. And then government bonds, those are treasury bonds, valued at 2.1 billion shillings, giving a total fund value of 7,924,104 shillings and 43 shillings and 30 cents. So members, today I would like to confirm to you that all your income earned was collected on time, that all your investments were executed within the laid down regulations, that we made all your investments according to the instructions received by your fund managers, and that your investments are safe with us. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll take any questions that you may have during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva, for that presentation. I would then like to call upon Moses Otieno from Zamara, who will then present the administrator's report.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be taking us through the administrator's report today. The format of my report will be very simple, just to give you a brief history of your scheme, when it started, and then I'll move on to the benefit structure, and then ultimately I'll tell you about how you can access your benefit. So in terms of your scheme, I just want us to ask one question: why do we save for our retirement? I know we all know. We save for our retirement so that we want to have enough money at the point where we retire. So this means that when we stop working, for one reason or another, then we have some money so that we can enjoy, our retirement. At the same time, we would also want to augment any other income we would be having in the event that we have other sources of income. So I want to challenge members at this point that it's important that we determine what kind of lifestyle we want to have and how much it is likely to cost us, so that at the point when we retire comfortably. Next slide. So in terms of your scheme, it was established on 1st of January 2000, the year 2000, and it has been a closed scheme effective 31st of December 2011, whereby all members who are below the age of 45 years joined the DC scheme beginning 1st of January 2012, and there are some members who are above 45 years, and they were given an option to determine what happens, whether they remain in the scheme or they move on to the DC scheme. And I just want to confirm that members exercise that right at that particular point in time. So when it comes to the benefits payable, you being a member of a defined benefit scheme gets your benefit through a defined formula. So this means that your benefit at the point where you retire is basically based on a formula, and that formula has items that has a number of factors that then inform the amount of money you take home. One being the years of service. So usually the longer you work, then the higher the benefit you get, and also the salary at the point of retirement. So at the point of retirement, if your salary is higher, definitely then you get more. So for your scheme, the formula we are talking about is 2% multiplied by the pensionable service multiplied by the final pensionable salary so that we get what your accrued pension is. So that's the formula that is employed in terms of how you get paid. So for different categories of member, based on how they live, they are paid in different terms. So one are those members who live before the age of 50. 50 is the magic number, really. Always when we talk about retirement, at age 50 for most schemes is the early retirement age. So you realize that anytime you live before 50, then you are paid in a certain way. So those ones who live before 50, I want to refer to them as living service. And this could be as a result of resignation. You could have been dismissed or even retrenched, or even, there is a restructuring process going on and your position becomes redundant and so on. So long as you're below the age of 50, you can exercise 3 options. One, you can defer all your benefits in the scheme until you attain the age of retirement. This one is normally recommended because, sometimes you are living for greener pastures, so it doesn't make sense for you to deprive the older person you're going to become the benefit that they may need at the point where, you retire. 2, you're allowed to transfer the benefit in its entirety to another registered scheme. And also in terms of payment, you can actually access, but the limit is up to 50% of your accrued benefit, which will be a comparison of what you've contributed, both employee and employer, and the actuarial cash equivalent of the deferred pension. So the higher of the two is what you will take home. The rest of the 50%, you can leave it in the scheme until you attain retirement age, or you can move it on to another registered scheme. So at retirement, what happens? I know we have spoken about pensioners. You get paid either as an annuity or a pension, and you have the option of commuting 1/3 as a lump sum. So what this means is that a portion of your benefits will be paid to you as a one-off cash payment, and then the rest of the money must be used to get a pension for you. Okay? So when you're at age 60, of course, your pension is in full, but if you retire earlier, because you've retired earlier, say 10 years before, you normally get what we call a reduced pension, and this is reduced based on the rules of the scheme. So moving on, in terms of emigration, and members here I want to caution, emigration is leaving the country, but we are saying and emphasizing that leaving the country with no intention of coming back. So our friends from Busia, at the border, if you walk across to the other side, we'll have a discussion, but the trustees will establish whether that is emigration. You're allowed to now take the full complement of your benefits, which will be paid to you as a lump sum. But here you have to provide evidence that you have no present intention of returning to Kenya. Death, unfortunately, when it occurs, there are some things that need to be done in terms of your benefits. And we are saying that if it is a spouse you've left behind, they benefit from 50% of the pension, and the children 12.5%, up to a maximum number of 4 children. So if you have 6 children, there'll be a determination of which 4 children to be included. And sorry, members. But don't worry, they normally go for the youngest, because obviously the older ones, you will have taken care of them. That's the assumption. Then there is an insured benefit, which is a multiple of the annual salary, and it is paid only as a lump sum to those who are active members, okay? And then if the pensioner dies, this is where a pensioner has passed on. So you've been earning pension. There is normally a guaranteed period of 120 months. So if someone passes on before the 120 months elapses, say 70 months into it, then there is a balance of 50 months that is still guaranteed, and that will be paid as a one-off lump sum to your beneficiaries. Again, it will be paid to the spouse at 50%, and to the children 12.5%, as I mentioned earlier, and that is how your benefits are paid. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, what are we saying? Over to the next slide, that you need to start early. Starting early means that we need to recognize that we are going to retire, whether we like it or. Are we older today than we were last year? Was it an option that was given to us? Are we happy we are older? Thank you. So we have to start early. Knowing that ultimately tutaenda nyumbani, tupende Tukatae tusi? Tupake dae kwa kichwa tusi? Okay. So again, we have to continue learning, and we also have to track our savings. I always say that in 1990, if you had 5 shillings, you remember the one which had 7 corners? Ilikuwa inaitwa kona saba. Mnakumbuka kona saba? In 1990, what would you have bought with the 5 shillings? Eh? Someone says they would have bought a meal, isn't it? Or even a meal for 2, isn't it? If you decided not to have lunch then, and you put that money under your pillow, and today you retrieved it from your treasure, and you retrieved your 5 shillings that was konasaba, that you placed there in 1990, that you refused to eat and slept hungry that day, because you're saving for the future, how much will it get you today? Nothing, isn't it? So it is important that we track our savings and we put them in investments so that they can achieve more than the rate of inflation. So finally, I want to say that as you approach your retirement, prepare for the transition to a different, fulfilling new way of life. Nowadays, we no longer retire to go and die. We retire to go and do other things. We retire to go and do other things. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and be blessed.
Thank you. Let's give him a large round of applause, please. At this point, we're going to do the second poll. So, Board Trust Secretary, I'd like to ask you to kindly share the second poll.
Thank you, Chairman. As we project the next poll, it's good to confirm that we currently have 519 members present. And the poll question, majorly covered by Moses, how would you rate your level of preparedness to retirement? How would you rate your level of preparedness for retirement? 1, I knew the date of retirement and was ready. Number 2, I prefer extension of service with employer to enable me to plan. Number 3, I would prefer pre-retirement training 5 years before retirement. The question is, how would you rate your level of preparedness for retirement? Answer number 1, I knew the retirement date and was ready. I would prefer extension of service with the employer to enable me plan. I prefer a pre-retirement training 5 years to retirement to enable me be able to prepare for retirement. This is a question that we gauge our members' preparedness to retirement, and we are asking members joining us virtually, that is the 520-something members, to answer this question. Members who have the questionnaires physically, they should also answer the same as they drop the questionnaire. So we give them 3 to 4 seconds so that they can be able to project the outcome of this poll. And we will appreciate this also help us on our training for retirement, pre-retirement training, and also understand how members have been able to absorb various training that we have been able to give them. ICT, can project the results, please. Chair, that's the outcome. 46% of the members who have answered. Let's start from the 113 members, that is 54%. I would prefer pre-retirement training 5 years before retirement. This will enable them to retire better. 46%, I knew the date of retirement and I was ready. And only one member would be looking forward for an extension of service so that they can be able to prepare for retirement, which is a very good indication and also a good confirmation that we should be able to continue training our members 5 years to retirement. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much, TS. I just noticed that though we have 520 members attending the virtual meeting, only 210 answered the question, which is less than 50%. So I then get concerned. Did people not understand the question, or are they too worried to answer it? Anyway, as we think about that, at this juncture, I'd like to now call upon the scheme auditors to confirm the financial position of the scheme as at 31st December 2020, together with their audit report. I'd like to call upon Job Ngunu from PricewaterhouseCoopers, who will present the auditor's report. Welcome, Job. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the trustees, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're doing well. So the format of my report is going to be a bit different from what we've seen. So I'm just going to quickly highlight where the auditor's report is on the financial statements. I'll also highlight very quickly our responsibilities and, of course, the responsibilities of the trustees. And then I will give you our auditor's opinion. So in the booklet that was issued, the booklet named KenGen Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme, our opinion is on page 36 all the way to page 39. So then I'll mention our responsibilities. So our responsibility is effectively to audit the financial statements and obtain reasonable assurance as to whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and of course then issue our auditor's opinion. I'd just like to mention at this point, the trustees, of course, through the Secretariat, are responsible for the preparation of these financial statements. Our responsibility is to audit them and issue an auditor's opinion. So I'd then like to talk to issue our opinion, having looked at the financial statements. The financial statements are included in this booklet on page 40 to 57 in the main financial statements on page 14 to 44. So we have audited the financial statements of KenGen Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme, set out on pages 14 to 44, as I've mentioned in this booklet, 40 to 57, which comprise of the statement of net assets available for benefits as at 31st of December 2020, and the statements of changes in net assets available for benefits and cash flows for the year then ended, and the notes to the financial statements, which of course include a summary of significant accounting policies. So in our opinion, these financial statements do give a true and fair view of the financial position of KenGen Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme as at 31st of December 2020, and of its financial performance and cash flows for the year then ended. This is in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards and the requirements of the Retirement Benefits Act. So without further ado, then that is our opinion. In layman terms, that is a clean opinion. The full auditor's report, again, as I've mentioned, is available in the booklets, and do have a good rest of the day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right, thank you very much, Job, for that report. I propose that the annual report and financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2020 be now taken as read. I will now take this opportunity to go through the minimum agenda items. During the year, the meetings held for the full board and committees were as follows. The full board held 8 meetings. The Administration and Communication Committee held 9. The Audit and Risk Committee held 6, and the Investment and Strategy Committee held 10. The trustees' remuneration is as disclosed in the financial report, page 33. Currently, the scheme pays sitting allowance of Kenya shillings 28,000 to the board chairman and Kenya shillings 24,500 to board members, net of all taxes. The board has no proposal to change its members' remuneration due to the current challenging economic conditions in the country and in line with its strategic objective to ensure administrative expenses are under control. I would also like to confirm that there were no changes in the benefit structure and contribution rate in the year under review. I would now like to welcome Mr. John Muli from RBA to present the regulator's remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope the members at the back can actually see me. As earlier introduced, my name is John Muli Mutisia, work in the supervision department. of RBA. RBA is an industry's regulator. And to start, the Board of Trustees, to the sponsor, service providers, and members. Good morning. I'm Jambo. I came with a colleague, we came the two of us. Your schemes are too big to be managed by one person. So we manage the schemes, two of us. Her name is Judy Minor. She introduced herself, and therefore we are very delighted to join you today, as we always are every year. It's always a joy for me to come to Eastern area. It reminds me of the village. And therefore, trustees, every time we are coming over, please always invite us. And we are always delighted to be here. So I'll make brief remarks from a macro perspective. Your service providers have given a very good analysis of the scheme, and therefore, I would not wish to repeat what they've already said. So RBA, just to introduce ourselves, we as a regulator, we are there to watch over the interest of members particularly, and also to promote the interest of the sponsor. Pension schemes in this country are voluntary establishments. No company is forced to start a pension scheme. Therefore, having a sponsor that is willing and able to finance your benefits for retirement, it's a really good thing. And therefore, we are there to promote the interest of the company as well, so that they can continue participating in this arrangement. And then, very importantly, we are there to enforce the law. There is a set of regulations and the Retirement Benefits Act, which has provisions that govern the way a scheme should be managed. And therefore, we are there to perform that function. This year, we celebrated our 20 years anniversary. We were established in the year 2000, and therefore, we've been there for the last 20 years. And we've seen the industry grow significantly. When we came in, the total industry value in this country was below 50 billion Kenya shillings. Over the last 20 years, it has grown to over 1.3 trillion Kenya shillings, and therefore that's quite significant growth. We are really proud of what yourselves as members, service providers, and trustees have assisted us to achieve over the last 20 years. In terms of members, we have about 3.2 million Kenyans who are participating in retirement schemes, and therefore the coverage is still low. When we came in, it was about 13%. Over the years, it has grown to about 22% as of 2019. And therefore, out of every 100 Kenyans you sample, you'll only be lucky to find about 20 Kenyans have a privilege of being members of retirement schemes. So members, you can treat yourselves to be privileged in that regard. So as an authority, we are doing a lot of work to try and grow that coverage. We are not saying that we are there. We are far away from there, and therefore we are doing quite a lot of work to grow the coverage in the country. In terms of the registered service providers, you've seen them. We've registered about 11 custodians, 24 fund managers, 31 pension administrators. So those are the service providers or experts that assisting us manage retirement schemes. Then finally, we have about 1258 registered retirement benefit schemes. Next slide, please. Thank you. So unfortunately, we cannot finish this conversation without talking about COVID-19. COVID-19 has been with us since 2020, and it's still there. And therefore, in this slide, I wish to look at some of the impact that it has had on the pension industry at large. So at the macro level, the pension industry has remained quite resilient despite the effects of COVID-19, and we continue to register growth. The total assets under management, now this is for the whole pensions industry, as of December 2020, it was about 1.4 trillion Kenya shillings. December 2019, it was about 1.3 trillion Kenya shillings. That's a growth of about 8%. In the previous year, the growth was about 11%, and therefore there's some decline in terms of the growth in the pension industry. So what we are saying is that even though there has been COVID-19, we've seen some growth, not as impressive as we would have wished for, but we've seen some growth, and therefore the industry has remained quite resilient. From a micro perspective, when you come to the scheme level, what precisely have we seen? We've seen financial stress for particular employers. Mostly this is in the hospitality industry, universities. That is where we've seen the biggest impact. So because of financial stress to employers and employees, we've seen members exiting employment. We've seen people accessing their benefits. So there's quite a bit of access of retirement benefits on withdrawal grounds. We've even seen employers who are applying for suspension of contributions. Your employer is not one of those employers, but for the employers that have really been pressed because of COVID-19, like the hotel industry, they've actually applied to suspend contributions for members for a certain period until things normalize. And then in the extreme cases, we've also seen cases where employers apply to close pension schemes. Remember, as I started by saying, pension schemes are voluntary. And therefore, an employer can wake up tomorrow and decide that we are no longer able to afford your scheme, and therefore we are choosing to close it. In terms of investments, your fund managers cover that pretty well. So we've seen quite a bit of volatility in returns, mostly in the equity market, and rental income for the schemes that have invested in property, like yourselves. And then there's a shift. Because of that, there's a shift to more conservative asset classes, like government securities, for majority of our pension schemes. And even we've seen pension schemes move into what we call guaranteed fund arrangements. On a positive note, we've seen extensive adoption of technology. Today's AGM is a good case study for that. We have members who are participating online. If you told me in 2019 that would be having virtual AGMs, I would probably have said no. But COVID-19 has taught us that probably we need to embrace technology more. And we've seen quite a lot of that. So trustees having virtual meetings, election of trustees is being done virtually, member engagements, including AGMs, member education forums, and other forms of communications have been done online. Then finally, we've seen some compliance challenges, late submission of statutory reports by some schemes, and as I said, challenges to do with the remittance of contributions. Moving on to the industry updates. This year, there was a budget reading by the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, and we did introduce quite a number of things for the industry. The first one is very relevant to yourselves, given the survey that we conducted. So on the issue of post-retirement medical health care, we've seen this is a significant concern for our members. Members are saying that it's okay, we've worked, we get some income in retirement, but majority of that money ends up in hospitals, paying our bills for Medicare. So we've introduced an innovation, which we are calling the post-retirement medical funds. Now, this is a framework that allows your scheme to allow you as members and the sponsor to put in some additional contributions in the scheme. So that when you come to retire, you have two kitties. You have a kitty that will give you income, and you also have a kitty that will give you a medical cover in retirement. And I want to report that we've actually developed guidelines to assist trustees to work on that. And this year again, initially the mandate was given for post-retirement medical funds that are established within a registered scheme. But this year the government went ahead and gave us additional mandate to regulate schemes that are established outside a registered pension scheme. And to the trustees, probably you can benchmark with RBA. Ourselves, we've already started a post-retirement medical fund, and both the members and the sponsor contributing to that regard. In terms of housing, we know the government has a big four agenda. One of them is housing. So we've introduced the mortgage regulations. Now, this is an amendment. The mortgage regulations have always been there. So what it does is that it allows members to access a portion of their retirement benefits or savings for purposes of purchasing a house. So if you have your savings of, say, 10 million in the scheme, the law now allows you to access up to 40% of your savings, up to a maximum of 7 million. And then that money is directed towards purchase of a house. Now, you'll realize that these initiatives are geared towards improving the attractiveness of retirement savings. and therefore they provide more benefits to members, which makes pension schemes actually attractive to the public. And also, it gives a room for your scheme to invest in these properties so that they can sell them to members or even to members of other retirement schemes, including what we call a tenant purchase agreement. As I come to near conclusion, some other industry updates. We've also introduced requirements for registration of corporate trustees. Now, what you have in your scheme is what we call individual trustees. But we do have other schemes that have employed companies to manage their scheme for them. Now, those companies are called corporate trustees. Initially, we did not regulate them, but from this year going forward, we'll be regulating and licensing corporate trustees. We've also been given powers to extend timelines for submission of audited accounts. During this period, we've seen a lot of challenges with schemes complying with submission of audited accounts, and therefore we saw it fit to apply to government to allow us to be able to give those extensions if a scheme is unable to submit audited accounts for reasons that are termed as valid. And then finally, and this is very important, the trustees have been given additional powers to be able to appoint KRA to recover unremitted contributions from employers. So if you're a member of a scheme, and remember I say that your schemes are not affected by this, but if it ever comes to that point that the sponsor is unable to remit your contributions, trustees now have powers to be able to appoint KRA, subject to approval by RBA. And KRA now will be, of course, pursue unremitted contributions. And we all know how KRA can be aggressive. Other policy considerations. This is my last slide. What we've seen over the years is inadequate benefits for our members. So majority of our members work up to retirement. They get their savings, but their replacement rate of the income that they get in retirement tends to be a bit low. And our research shows that it's about 30% of your final salary at the point of exit. So you may not be able to manage your lifestyle in retirement. And therefore, that's a big concern for us. And we are working on a policy, national pensions policy, that is going to address that particular challenge. Longevity risk. This is a real risk. We've seen it in Kenya. We've seen it elsewhere. And this is a risk where members are actually surviving for longer. I know it's a positive risk. We are happy to be surviving for longer. But then what it means is that you actually require more money for it to support you in retirement. Therefore, longevity risk is another concern that we are seeing over the years. Labor markets. Our Kenyan market is heavily skewed in the informal sector. Over 80% of our workers are in the informal sector. And you would appreciate that the schemes that we have are mainly geared towards addressing the needs of the formal sector, where you have an employer, you have an employee, there's a payroll, there's a pay slip. But majority of our workers, unfortunately, do not have that arrangement. And therefore, we even have a strategic plan that, as one of the key pillars, is to address the needs of the informal market. Then finally, we are seeing an emerging trend in the failure by employers to remit contributions, and particularly government institutions, more so universities. And therefore, that's another key area that we are in discussions with government to take a policy directive. In conclusion, I want to conclude by saying asanteni sana to the Board of Trustees, to the sponsor, to the service providers. You are doing a fantastic job. RBA, we have a risk-based framework where we categorize schemes based on their risk level. I just want to confirm that KenGen board schemes, you are not among the schemes that bother us too much. We are happy to be managing your scheme. Your scheme is not very rated in terms of their risk profile. And therefore, to the trustees, keep up, continue doing the good job. To the members, stay safe. See you next year, God willing, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muli, for those very complimentary comments. I now take this great opportunity to welcome Madam Rebecca Meano, the KenGen MD and CEO, to deliver the sponsor's remark to the members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And good morning, everyone. And I do hope that so far you have keenly listened and followed all the presentations from the experts, because I believe that information is very invaluable and useful to all of us. And I pray that you have been attentive in what in KenGen we call being present, and all protocols observed. From the onset, I want to take this opportunity to wish you safety, good health, and even warmth in this cold weather. And it is a good morning for which we are grateful to be meeting again at the Retirement Benefit Scheme AGM. The prevailing situation occasioned by COVID-19 reminds us to delight in the rare moments when we have an opportunity to meet, more so physically. And even those who have joined us virtually, karibuni sana. Even as we do so, let us continue to be vigilant and observe all the set protocols, right from the basics: wash your hands, wear a mask, and maintain the social and physical distance that is required. Members, even as we reflect on retirement today, let us not forget our mandate, that which will ensure that we have a happy retirement. And by the way, retirement is round the corner, no matter how much or how young you are. Today, we are the leading energy producer in Kenya, and among the top 10 geothermal producers in the world, and the home to the only geothermal spar in Africa. KenGen's long-term strategy is to focus on sustainable supply of renewable energy. We supply about 70% of the electricity consumed in Kenya, with over 80% of this coming from renewable sources. We are currently installing the largest single unit of a steam turbine with a capacity of 83 megawatts, and that is the Olkaria 1 Unit 6, to be completed and commissioned by the end of this year. Once the project is completed, the Olkaria 1 power plant will be a 233 megawatt geothermal giant. This addition will push our installed capacity to 1.9 gigawatts, only 100 megawatts shy of 2 gigawatt mark. This is a great deal and something to be proud of. Whenever we expand our capacity and add electricity to the national grid, we realize an impact on our performance too. This is evidenced by the enhanced revenue generated for the last financial year, ended June 2020, where we reported a 13.4% growth in electricity revenue. Through the company's positive performance, we have consistently paid dividends over the years to our shareholders. And through the robust diversification strategy, KenGen is on transition from competition to collaboration with other African countries, particularly in developing geothermal energy in the region. We leverage on our expertise in-depth knowledge of the African Rift Valley, and close to 4 decades of successful drilling experience to make good our diversification strategy. Why am I proud to share this success story? It is because of dedication, hard work, and commitment from you, our employees. One of our rewards to you is to ensure, as you toil to power not only Kenya but the region, we ensure we reward you good sunset years. When you need to take a rest from the active service, we do pray that you'll be comfortable. The sponsor remains committed to fully fund the DB scheme and remit contributions to both schemes in a really timely manner. Last year, 94 staff drew retirement benefits from the DB scheme, while 80 drew retirement benefits from the DC scheme, which will go a long way in ensuring they retire comfortably. So let us forge ahead as we actualize KenGen's Big 5 2021 manifesto, where we are saying simply do it or simply deliver, generate cash, reset for digital world, showcase your greatness, and promote the KenGen brand. While the scheme has autonomy in its operations, we are proud to know that the schemes have over the years independently made investment in its sponsoring company, that is KenGen. It is through you as a scheme and many other investors' confidence in us that bolsters both local and foreign investment interest in KenGen. We are delighted to note that KenGen has large shareholders like the government of Kenya. We also know that the second largest shareholder is a foreign investor, Public Investment Corporation, an asset management company that is wholly owned by the government of the Republic of South Africa. We believe that you will continue to walk the journey of growth with us. KenGen also promotes gender mainstreaming within the organization. The sustained efforts were recognized by the government of Kenya through the Ministry of Public Service and Gender Annual Trailblazer Awards 2021. We have embraced this call in the scheme through the nominations we have made of sponsor representatives to the Board of Trustees. Out of the 6 slots available to sponsor nominated trustees in the DB scheme, there is equal representation between male and female. In the DC scheme, the sponsor has nominated 2 male and 1 female. And the Board of Trustees is proud to introduce the newest trustees. We have Mr. David Mwangi, appointed by the board, and also Masio and Asaria, who were elected by you members. And gentlemen, we encourage you to represent the KenGen brand in the board through your commitment and professional guidance. Our organization has acquired a huge slice of learning options at the click of a button on LinkedIn Learning. Please use the available platform not only to hone your capacity as an employee, but also learn life skills on finances, investing, and saving. In this case, you have to learn a lot more about retirement from the best online trainers that we have signed up with. We applaud similar efforts the trustees have made to create awareness on retirement matters and also retirement benefits and financial awareness amongst our members, and now working with tailor-made sessions for the sponsors' targeted groups, such as the young KenGen and staff within the 10 years to reaching retirement age. I urge members, please, to take a front seat in these learning forums. Members, let us aspire to take care of our entire well-being, not only when we are employed, but during retirement. KenGen PLC has held the Global Innovation Seminar over the last 9 years. And through this, we have so far earned Kenya shillings 2.6 billion in revenues from commercial innovation initiatives. We invite the Board of Trustees, through you, Chairman, to invest in innovation to ensure we earn the highest return for our members while saving on costs. As I conclude, let me remind you to continue observing the COVID-19 protocols, both at work and at home, and help to stop the spread of this deadly virus. We have seen the numbers of new infections rising in the last few weeks and days, and therefore calls for all of us to be extremely vigilant in this fight. So please stay safe. But finally, remember, a strong sponsor ensures a strong retirement benefit scheme, and a solid retirement benefit scheme like ours also ensures that the sponsor remains strong. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's have another warm round of applause for our CEO. Thank you, Ms. Miano, for those wonderful remarks. So now, as earlier guided, I take this opportunity to invite you to the question and answer session. We will begin by taking questions from our physical audience and then move to receive questions from the chat module. I request that those asking questions, please state your full names as you ask the question. We have microphones that are going around. Over to you. Let us start on the questions. I know that we have had a very clear presentation, but are you sure there are no questions at all? Maybe as people are warming up, Bwana Trust Secretary, you can read some of the questions that have been asked on the chat and the answers that have been given.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll go through the questions that have been asked on the chat module, and we go through the answers. One of the questions is from Stephen Odhiambo. He wants to register all his wives as beneficiaries, and I will request Stephen Odhiambo just to download the beneficiary form and register all your wives as beneficiaries. We have no problem with that. The next one is Gideon Kemboy. He is asking, upon death of a pensioner, the spouse get 50% of the pension and the kids get 12.5% for 4 kids. Is this paid as a lump sum or is it paid as a regular payment? This is paid as regular payment till kids are 21 until the spouse, the demise of the spouse. Daniel Nzioki is asking about the return of the scheme property investment, that is LBS Garden, Lozrin, Malindi, and Steamer Plaza. For last year, it was a bad performance, but we have been kept improving and reducing the property. We had a 7% from that. The next one was, I cannot check the one that are here. We have the one from George Molombi. To what extent is the scheme able to mobilize domestic saving in Kenya? And is the scheme allowed to invest in offshore? Yes, we invest in domestic equities, and also we are able to invest in offshores. We have currently invested in offshores. We also invest in fixed income, so we have invested locally too. Another question is from Eugene Orlando. How do I keep track of my pension and also place them in an investment option available? For the DB scheme, we have no options of investment options, but we'll discuss that into details under the DC scheme. However, you can keep track of your investment under the DB scheme by logging in on your portal, which you visit our website, log in on your portal, and you'll be able to see your benefits. The next one is from Godfrey Mwambili. Can a member take some of their percentage of their benefits in advance as a loan to finish a project? No. You can only utilize, as indicated by the LBA, 40% of your benefits, or a maximum of 7 million, to do a residential home. And remember that home remains attached to the scheme till retirement. There was also another question from Samin Diwa. Why do the scheme have 60% of its asset in property? Yes, we know we are above the limit of 30%, and we have a strategy towards reducing that to the allowable limit. We have also filed with the regulator who is present on our strategy to reduce that holding. Chair, the rest of the questions were majorly answered by my team, but I can do the last one from Joseph Obongi about the circulation of financial statement. We have those financial statements available on our website, and we have also circulated to active members through email, and for pensioners we'll also circulate this financial statement via email. Chair, those are the questions. The rest have also been handled by my team who are seated there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trust Secretary. Just to point out that for those who do not know the website, it will be circulated to everybody so that you can get the financial statements. Do we have any questions in the audience? Okay. Unfortunately, the person you're pointing to is behind the screen, so I can't see them. I'll request that they... Okay, now I can see them. I'll request that they say their names and then ask their question clearly. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Peter Clavers Owuor, also a representative of the staffs in the region. There is a question that has been asked a lot by the members of staffs who are going to retire mostly at the end of the year. Since we don't have a CBA in place, and we are planning to have a CBA in place. Now, for those who will have gone on retirement before receiving their increment this year, what happens to their shares or whatever they're supposed to have been given from January until the end of the year? Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Do we have any more questions before I pass that on to one of my trustees? Yes, we have another question in the plenary. Where's Abraham? You'll be able to take that?
I have two questions. My name is Nixon Dugere.
Okay.
Question one is, you have mentioned that there have been sales of our projects like the houses, and I add that this up to also the rents. How do employees benefit from the proceeds of the sales, and the rents gotten while they were still in employment. And two, some years back, some millions were stolen from our scheme. Was that money returned or recovered? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any more questions? Okay, maybe we can take the questions that are on the floor as we wait for more questions. I will start by answering the first question from Nixon Dugere, which is the sales of projects, the rents, how do employees benefit from these? Every year we are showing you an increase in your pension balance, in the pension balances, and if you receive a pension statement, it shows your personal increase. So all the investment returns that come into the scheme go towards increasing your personal benefit. From a defined contribution perspective, it is purely dependent on the investment return. On a defined benefit perspective, you have a fixed return already assured. So all we are doing is we are ensuring we shall have enough money to pay that assured benefit. Okay? The next question I would like to be answered is I'll ask Abraham, one of my trustees and directors, to answer the question from Peter Owor, and then I will ask our trust secretary to answer the last question about the money that was lost. So over to Abraham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And the question asked by Mr. Ward is very, very valid. We are all aware that the government issued some directive a while back that there would be no salary increases, and the CBA negotiations were put on hold for some time. Definitely that would affect those employees who are retiring this year, because ordinarily pensionable benefits would be calculated based on the current basic salary that you have. But now that the CPA for this year will not have been concluded, then what happens in terms of the calculations? Very valid question. Our opinion is that it is your entitlement, only that there is a slight delay, and therefore if you retire, then the calculation of your benefits will be based on your current salary. Our hope is that when the CPA is concluded, then there'll be some recalculation to correct the error, and then your rightful retirement benefits paid to you. But I think this can also be confirmed by the regulator. But that is our thinking and opinion as trustees. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer, Abraham. You realize again that that is not an issue that only affects KenGen, but actually goes across all parastatals and the industry in general. So we shall look to you, Mr. Muli, to guide us when the time comes, and to also give our members and pensioners comfort that we are doing what is best for them. Thank you very much. I'll now ask the Trust Secretary to talk about the stolen funds.
Thank you, Chair. Back in 2016, 2015, we had some allegation of stolen funds for the under RBS gardens from the manager who was managing the funds. And through the available means, through the contract, we went for arbitration with the service provider, and we won the arbitration and we were given an award. However, the law allows the aggrieved party to go for high court seeking not to approve the arbitration. The case has been heard and the appeal has been dismissed, and we're expecting now to apply for a decree for implementation of the award. So we expect to be able to collect the funds from the service provider. Chair, with those, I can be able to take some few questions.
Yes, before you do that, do we have any more questions from the floor? I've got a hand in the back. So maybe let's do a few questions from the floor, then we'll finish with those. Please don't forget to give your full names.
name is Erin Wandia from Kamburu.
Please lift the mic, thank you.
My question is about the percentage of the spouse and the children. I have heard on the side of the children, you have to register 4. Well, that one is okay on my side because I have 3. The problem is, if I'm not forgetting, there is that issue of years. There is a time I had the children above 21, they are not supposed to get the whatever, the money. If the rule is still there, my children, all of them are over 24. Where will my money go for the children? The other issue on the spouse, there is that time tulikuwa tunawekewa vikwazo. Spouse mpaka awe moja kwa pande ya wamama, na wazee nasikia mtu analijesta 2 au 3.
Members, can we let her finish her question, please?
I would like a clarification for that. And another on the still side of the spouse. What if I have no spouse? Where will that money go? Santi.
Okay, thank you very much for that very good question. Do we have any other questions? Do we have any other questions? As I would like the trustees to think on that question, because I think that's an exciting question to answer. Yes, we have another member out there.
My name is Jonathan Musila, and I wanted clarification on the beneficiaries. Can I do the addition and subtraction online, or must it be on hard copy? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that question, Jonathan. Any other questions? Okay, we'll take those questions and then probably conclude. Do I start with Helen's question, or do I have a taker? Maybe let me start, and if any of my trustees would like to clarify, they will. So, Helen, in terms of the percentage given to the spouse and the percentage given to the children, as well as the number of children who can be paid, these are matters that are governed by our trust deed. There's actually a trust deed that was written when this pension scheme was formed, and those are the rules and regulations that we as trustees abide by. If there is reason, for example, for us to say we want to change that trust deed to move it from 4 children to 6 children, this will probably need to be something that is raised by the membership, brought to the board for adjudication, and then we propose it. Understanding that we also need to look at what are we going to pay the members. Please note how the pension fund works. It is supposed to be money paid to you until your demise, and then after that, if your spouse is still alive, the half of that amount is paid, half of your pension is paid to your spouse until their demise. The reason it is half is because you were getting the full amount. The assumption is it was supporting you and your spouse. You are no longer there. So your spouse only needs half of what you are getting. And please note, this is not like a defined contribution scheme where you're saying it is your money. No, this is actually a pot that was calculated. So you might find that if you live longer than expected, because the way these amounts are calculated is based on a certain life expectancy. If you live 20 years longer than your life expectancy, you'll actually use more money than was calculated for you. But that, no one takes that into account. We don't say everyone has to live up to this point in time. The promise from the scheme is, as soon as you retire, this is the amount you shall be paid until your demise. If your spouse is still alive, this is the amount they will be paid until their demise. As for children, it is assumed, it is taken that all children that are dependents are below 21. Children above 21 are no longer dependents, and therefore, at the point of your demise, if your children are all above 21, there will be no funds paid to the children. There is nothing entitled to them. That is as per the scheme rules. Now, in terms of the clarification of number of spouses for ladies, I don't think it is an issue of spouses, and I'll look for correction from my team. But just like the question you had on the earlier from the people who have written in the questions, you can register all the people you want as beneficiaries, not necessarily as spouses, but as beneficiaries. The challenge is it is you registering them, and if they are not spouses legally, you'll have a different scenario, because again, we also go by the laws of Kenya. So the laws of Kenya may allow a man to have a wedding in church and have one wife, and a traditional wedding and have another wife. I'm not very sure, and I'll look for the lawyers in the house. Are ladies allowed to also do the same? As far as I know, legally, I'm not saying where I come from, my beliefs might be different, but legally, when I go to a court of law, you see, as a man, I can say woman X is my wife from church. Woman Y, I had a traditional marriage. The law will actually recognize that. But can a woman say the same? I'm not so sure they can. And maybe that is something we need to put forward. So, Helen, I'm not very sure you can register more than one spouse as a lady. But we shall take it under advisement, and the Trust Secretary will come back to you with a very concrete answer. In terms of, Jonathan, in terms of the changes of beneficiaries, maybe TS, you can answer that quickly.
Thank you, Chair. On the allowing members to change beneficiary online, we had a challenge with this. And most members would change their beneficiaries on Monday and they revert back on Thursday. Meaning that there's collation on over the family over the weekend, and the members change the beneficiaries on Monday. And after things settle down on Thursday, they want you to come back with the right beneficiary. So for now, we only allow you to put information, but you not change the beneficiaries until we realize it's you and you're in your good capacity. There was a question on we need to do a research on why members are dying immediately after retirement. Chair is a big worry, and we are currently carrying a research on that one. That came from Dina Dimba, that most of the members after retirement, they are not living for so long. So we are carrying out, and we'll be able to take up that question. Director would want to say something. Thank you.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a small comment that I would like to make, which is that in the unfortunate event that one dies, either in service or maybe when they have retired, the trustees have faced some issues in regards to payment of benefits to the beneficiaries. That, and this affects my gender mostly, that when a man dies, two wives might start appearing, but those declared in our records with the Secretariat might be one, but there'll be others, and those kind of things. The appeal that we are making to all of us is to regularize our records and ensure that genuine beneficiaries are actually registered with the scheme. Because as you speak now, we have a number of unresolved cases because of what then had been registered with the scheme, leaving the trustees with a lot of, problems in terms of apportionment of the benefits. So this is really an appeal to all of us. Let us have our records correct, and let us not be emotional about those records that you change on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Let them be permanent records, and let us not allow our children or our spouses to suffer when we've left this world. Because as we speak now, there are some children who ought to be enjoying the benefits of their father that accrue to them by virtue of their employment and pensionable benefits, but they are not accessing them now because along the way, our records were not straight. So this is an appeal. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you for that. And just as I wind up, there's one other point I did not mention. And to Helen asked, what happens if you have no spouse? Then it is what it is. Because the truth of the matter is, even when you come and register a spouse, it is not just about writing their name. It needs to be backed. If you say this is a wife or a husband, what is a document that shows us, a legal document that shows us this is your spouse, either from a church, from the government, something that will show us, because otherwise people will change spouses every week, and that it will really make our life difficult. With that, members, I'd like to close the question and answer session, and I now beg to move that the chairman's annual general meeting report, proposals, recommendations, and presentation made by various stakeholders be adopted and form part of this meeting. May I please have a proposer? Okay, could I please get a name? And as we're getting that, may I please have a seconder?
My name is Boaz Adiego.
Boaz Adiego, thanks for proposing. May I please have a seconder? Okay, I have a seconder in the back.
My name is Jonathan Musila. I second.
Jonathan, thank you very much. I now take this opportunity to thank you all for taking time to join and engage with us during this AGM. I also take this opportunity to thank all the service providers who have been involved and ensured this meeting was successful. I'd also like to thank the 522 virtual members who are still with us. Trust Secretary, could you kindly share the last poll before we close?
Thank you, Chair. IT. Chair, the last poll under DB scheme is to check on the mortgage regulations, and the question is, would you like to use your pension benefits as a collateral for your first mortgage? This is under the previous regulation. Is it a yes or a no? Or I am not sure how this one works. This will also help us to educate members on the amendments. So the question is, would you like to use your pension benefits as a collateral for your first mortgage? Question is either yes, no, or I am not sure how this one works.
Okay, we'll give you a minute to answer that, and please, the virtual members, please answer this as well.
We can give them 5 seconds more. IT, you can project the results. Chair, interesting response. Yes, members, 32% would want to use their pension benefits as a collateral for the first mortgage. No, 35%, and a big number of that 3% of people who are not sure how this one works. It's a help us on doing the member education and letting the member understand how this one works, and together with the amendment to these regulations. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, TS. There being no other business of which due notice has been given, may I take this opportunity to thank you once again for attending the meeting. I now declare the KenGen Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme, DB Scheme, Annual General Meeting officially closed.
Wale ambao wako kule nje ya gate na wale ambao wako ndani lakini kule mbali, tunawasihi mrudi katika hema ili tuweze kuendelea.
Humphrey.
Yep.
Acha niendelee.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
Welcome, Chairman.
Thank you very much, the two MCs. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon again. Good. Maybe for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ernest Nadome, the chairman of the DC scheme. And it is with great privilege that I welcome you to the KenGen Defined Contribution DC Scheme 2012 Annual General Meeting for the financial year ended 31st December 2020. Members, before we commence the meeting, we will also wish to take this opportunity to honor our departed members and colleagues who are part of our great family. Truly, we will not be where we are today without the various forms of contribution to this institution. Can we stand up, please, just for a minute or thereabout? Thank you. You can sit down. Now, may I ask the Trust Secretary to advise if we have the requisite quorum to continue with this or to start off this AGM. TS?
Thank you, Chair. Currently, we have 120 members joining us physically and 408 members joining us virtually. I confirm that we have a quorum that constitutes this meeting and we can proceed.
Thank you, TS. A quorum being formed, I declare the meeting to be properly convened and duly constituted. Now, for the rules of the meeting, this being a hybrid AGM, we shall address the questions. I think I don't need to repeat the same way we did. Yeah, so the manner in which we conducted ourselves on raising questions, both through the chat and physical, I think will apply the same. Now, without much ado, I will want us to go to the first poll. TS?
Thank you, Chair. I request IT to project the first poll. IT? Thank you. Chair, this question may look technical, but we think it's necessary as we proceed with our investment. So the question is, if you had an opportunity to choose an investment plan for your scheme benefits, which of the following would you prefer? Choice of one, either a conservative allocation, where it's a low risk and low return, moderate allocation, medium risk and medium return, aggressive allocation, high risk and high return. I prefer all of the above put together in one investment vehicle as we currently do. So we are selecting either of the four where you would want your benefits invested into, because we are trying to see if we can be able to have various investment plan within the fund that members can invest into, either conservative, moderate, aggressive, or currently where we have all the above three put together. So current plan that we have for the scheme is for the three put together, but we are thinking of having an option where a member can either be conservative, moderate, or aggressive. We request members joining us virtually to pick one of the answers that will be able to guide us as we come up with an investment plan for the scheme. And we can give them 3-4 seconds and so that we can be able to project the answers. And I request IT to project the answers, please. Thank you, Chair. a very interesting outcome. 52% would want us to continue the same way, whatever is currently happening, where the above are put together. 16% would want to go for aggressive, where there's high return, high return, high risk. Moderate, 28%, where there's medium risk, medium return. Conservative, only 5%. So it's a confirmation that as much as we think of the opportunities within the investment plan that we can provide for members, most of our members would want to continue with the current plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, TS. That tells a lot from that poll. Members, I have had the pleasure to serve with a competent and committed board who are present here today, just in front. Kindly allow me to introduce them to you. To the trustees, kindly wave to the members as I introduce you. I'll start with the sponsor, and that is none other than our MD and CEO, Madam Rebecca Miano. Let's clap for her. Thank you. Next is our director, Abraham Serem, sponsor appointed. And then we also have Peter Mutemi, who is member nominated. And we also have 3 trustees. And maybe before I allow them to raise their hands, let me just give you some bit of background. Firstly, we have David Mwangi, who was appointed as a sponsor representative. Mr. Mwangi is currently the acting company secretary and legal affairs director at KenGen PLC. He holds a Bachelor of Law degree from Moi University and a Master of Business Administration from Jomo Kenyatta University. He brings on board his expertise in legal matters that will assist in steering the Administration and Communication Committee, of which he chairs. He is also a member of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. Mr. Mwangi, kindly wave. Tumpigie makofi. Thank you, Mwangi. I'm also pleased to welcome the second trustee who was elected by members. That is Charles Masio. He is currently the Assistant Manager, Finance, Performance and Budget Control at KenGen PLC, and previously served as a Chief Officer in Geothermal and Western Region. He holds a Bachelor Commerce degree in Accounting and Business Administration, a Master's in Finance, both from the University of Nairobi, and currently he is undertaking a PhD in Project Finance at Jomo Kenyatta University. Mr. Masio adds to the pool of our expert trustees when it comes to financial matters that will see the scheme navigate through change in the ever-dynamic corporate environment. Mr. Masio is the chairman of Audit and Risk Management Committee and a member of Investment and Strategy Committee of the board. Charles? Tumpigie makofi. He has worked here some times back. He was here. Finally, I introduce to you Engineer Asaria Onsoti, also elected a member. Engineer Asaria, also a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering with honors from Jomo Kenyatta University. He is currently the senior engineer in charge of all KenGen drilling rigs. Having served in several other boards, Engineer Asaria shall bring his leadership skills on board to guide the scheme in relation to good governance practice. In the board, Engineer Asaria is a member of Admin and Communication and also Audit and Risk Management Committees. Engineer Asaria, kindly wave to the members. You can imagine he's small-bodied, but he has all that. Lastly, we are pleased to be joined by the CEO and Trust Secretary. I think he had already been introduced. He's still the CEO and Trust Secretary of DC. Murioki, Josephat, wave again. Now, it's the turn to recognize the service providers. I don't need to introduce to you. I think we all saw Muli, the RBA rep. He did a presentation here. We have reps from investment managers. Old Mucho, David Kialo, tumpigie makofi. ICA Lion, Esther Muchai. I think this was done also, is it? Yeah? No, not yet. Custodian. We have one from Corporate Bank of Kenya. That's one, Lydia Mushiri. She's been with us for quite some time. Karibu. We have Administrator Zamara. I think since inception we've been with them. And they are represented by Kansa Musioka? No. So, good. Thank you. Auditor, we have Deloitte and Touch, a rep. And we are represented by Teresa Washira. Good. I now call upon the Trust Secretary to read the notice convening this particular meeting.
Thank you, Chair. 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
Okay.
Thank you. Chair, this notice was issued on 30th June 2021, and that days to this meeting, and in compliance with the good governance guidelines and also the board charter. And I read the notice. Notice is given that the annual general meeting for KenGen defined contribution schemes of 2012 will be held today at Matedeni Sport Cloud and streaming live on Zoom on 30th July 2021 today from 12 p.m. And the agenda for the meetings is as follows: to read the notice convening the meeting, what I'm currently doing, to receive chairman's report, to receive the manager's report, to receive custodian's report, to receive administrator's report, to receive the scheme auditor's financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2020, together with auditor's report therein, to receive RBA remarks, question and answer session, and also receive any other business which due notice has been received, and also the closing remarks. This notice was issued by myself by the order of the board, Josephat Murioki, CEO and the Trust Secretary, on 29th June 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, TS. Members, it's now our turn to review agenda item number 6 on the scheme's audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2020. In your booklet, we've had, we did a comprehensive report for the chair, but what I'll be reading to you is an executive summary, so just bear with that in the interest of time. Dear members, it is with pleasure that I report the scheme's performance for the year ending 31st December 2020. Though being a challenging year to any investor, our achievements have been commendable. The scheme was established in the year 2012 as a contributory scheme for KenGen staff. In the same year, we began by serving 1,634 members, consisting of 162 joiners and 1,472 who transferred under their benefits from the DB scheme. Nearly 1 decade later, that is 10 years ago, we are now serving more than 2,200 dedicated staff, which is a 34% growth in the membership over the period. Since inception, the scheme has had a phenomenal growth of 1,585% in net asset, closing at a value of approximately Kenya shillings 7.629 billion as of December 31st, 2020. Despite the current slowdown economic activity, the assets still exhibit resilience to post a growth of 19% attributable to growth in members' contribution and investments income. Our focus as a board, it is on long-term, our long-term investment strategy. During the year, The board continued to steer the scheme's 10-year strategy, now in its second year of implementation. One of the key goals is towards making alternative investment, and in line with this, the board made investment to 2 private equity funds, while it also increased exposure to real estate investment. In addition, the board commenced implementation of an enterprise resource planning, that is ERP, which is instrumental towards the scheme's efficient drive of the board's strategic decisions and operational excellence. Pension industry, key changes on legislation. This was covered mostly also by Muli. In this current year, several legislative changes affecting retirement benefit schemes have been made under the post-retirement medical fund, the income drawdown, and mortgage. Lending sections of Retirement Benefit Authority Act, and mortgage lending sections of Retirement Benefit Authority Act. The scheme is laying a framework for operationalization of these regulations, and the board will also host biannual meetings with members in the year to sensitize you on the above changes in addition to other areas of interest. On the mortgage, we have a deadline of September, so we should be having it up and running. Corporate governance. Under corporate governance, the board adopted and implemented an annual board evaluation exercise as a necessary tool to measure governance, accountability, and areas of improvement while carrying out our mandate. Also previously stated, we had board changes with 3 outgoing trustees and 3 replacements. I call upon the new trustees to bring in their best as we work together to serve the members. Looking forward, as we look into the year 2021, we remain aware of the uncertain financial market, and that notwithstanding, we are set to accomplish our goals and objectives clearly laid out in our strategic plan. Members, the board shall maintain a disciplined asset mix and constantly review the same. Additionally, we will continue to review other actions that can reduce risks and costs across the scheme. We remain committed to serving our members and ensuring the pension fund continues to pay promised pension benefits for this and future generations. I would like to thank my colleagues in the board, the sponsor, the secretariat, the regulator, investment managers, custodian, auditors, and all other professional consultants for your valuable services to the scheme. You've been supportive to us as a board and to the scheme. And as we take a glimpse at history, we can foretell the story ahead will be no different but one of stellar financial performance. Thank you. Now, we'll receive annual reports from our professional service providers. And in this case, we shall start with Hilam, and it's being represented by Esther. So Esther, welcome, and proceed ahead with the session.
The Board of Trustees, members, my fellow service providers, good afternoon. Today I'm privileged to present to you the Fund Manager's Report that has been, of course, compiled together with my fellow colleague from Old Mutual, that is David. And I will, you can just go to the next page. I will just roughly go through, for the sake of the members that are new, I will quickly go through the role of a fund manager. We are subcontracted by the Board of Trustees to offer fund management services, basically to invest your money in simple terms. So one of our role is to advise trustees on a continuous basis. We have meetings every quarter, and we, of course, tell them about the investment opportunities that are there in the market. And of course, in those meetings, we are also taken to task on the decisions or strategies that we have presented. And we continuously adjust our investments accordingly after such meetings. And as and when we find it appropriate, we ensure that we keep a proper record of our activities, our fund management activities. And one big thing that we continuously do as fund manager, as we are required to, is ensure compliance. And your board of trustees, now that they have subcontracted us to offer the investment services, they have given us a document that guides us. It stipulates your risk and return objectives. That is the document that shows us your age profile, what kind of risk framework we can operate in. So we ensure compliance to that document. We also ensure compliance. Remember, we are regulated by the RBA and CMA as well. We are licensed by the CMA. So we ensure at any given time that we are also compliant with the RBA guidelines as well as CMA guidelines. We are also mandated to report back to the members once every year, and that is why we are having this annual general meeting. So in a nutshell, those are just some among other functions that a fund manager is supposed to, of course, undertake in this assignment. You can move to the next. So next, I will just dive into the crux of the matter today. And I will start by taking you through the economic overview before I proceed on to the next bit that is on the numbers to just show you where we are. And basically, this is just to take you back to the 2020 environment, and of course, so that you can appreciate the numbers when I present them. I'll start with the global markets. And this is very important because, as you have seen, we are continuously becoming a very small village when it comes to investments and other matters. So, and offshore is one of the asset classes we can also tap into when we are doing our investments. So I'll start from a global perspective. Immediately, the WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic. It moved from a health crisis to an economic crisis. There was so much disruption, as you are all aware by now, in terms of supplies, and of course it came down to demand. And you can see from that graph, just a simple way of interpreting it is you can see the declines at the end of March, that is first quarter. There was rapid capital flight from other markets into safe haven assets, which are dollar assets. And of course, that saw most markets go down by more than 30% in a matter of days. But that was very short-lived, and that is something that I would like you to, in as much as we're in a pandemic, this is something that I would like you to go home with today. You can see what happened in the offshore markets immediately after. Offshore markets last year gave us the best-in-class returns. We had anyone who invested in March got returns of in excess of 60% last year. That is something that is very important to maybe take note of. And why did that happen? Why did that happen? It is because, and that informs our strategy even today, shortly after the huge declines we saw in March, many economies, especially the developed world, pumped in a lot of money in the financial markets, into the financial systems, to also help households. So there was so much money in the system, one way or another, that money found its way back into financial markets. So there's a very huge disconnect today between the financial markets performance and the performance of the real economy. So, and that still continues to be the case even today. There is so much money still around because of what has been pumped into the system, to the tune of about $9 trillion by end of June last year. So that is why we saw offshore markets giving us very good performance last year. So let me come down to the domestic markets. If you can move on to the next slide. So coming to the domestic markets, starting with our economic growth last year as expected, I mean with the immediate closure, given the new phenomenon of lockdowns, that is abrupt stop to accommodation, travel, everyone to work from home and all that, and of course, closing down of schools. We saw our worst in almost a decade in terms of economic growth. And first quarter, that is second quarter, we had a contraction of about 5.5%. And that was also felt in the third quarter as well. And that was largely attributed to the education sector and accommodation. But you can see a recovery is happening. Into this year, our outlook is positive. And this is because there has been a successful rollout of the vaccines. We hope that by the end of this year, we'll have at least a good population already vaccinated to achieve the herd immunity. So we have a positive outlook on our economic growth this year just because of that. But of course, we are cognizant of the risks. As we speak right now, the numbers have been going up again. We are being told we are in the fourth wave. So that is something to watch. The other thing that that is likely to pose as a risk is international oil prices, and you'll see that shortly as well. If you can move to the next slide. So looking at inflation last year, in as much as we had a pandemic, there were so many factors, of course, that ensured we had subdued demand. I've talked about global supply disruption and, of course, global demand disruption. We saw demand within the country also really decline. We say it was really muted or subdued within the year. People stopped importing so much. There was, of course, guys were affected in terms of job losses. Capacity to spend went down. So definitely what normally happens, that demand disrupts, of course, when it comes to inflation, it has a cooling effect on inflation. So there was no much activity, or rather the level of pricing in the country was a bit muted because of muted demand. And for the sake of maybe those ones who may not understand what probably headline inflation is, you bought a packet of unga in January at 80 shillings. At the end of the year, the packet of unga has gone to 100 shillings. We call that price differential inflation. Your purchasing power has been diminished to some extent. And I know some of you will say that is bad, but that is it's very important for us to have inflation in the economy because of the guy in business, when they put in raw materials to produce their whatever it is they are making, the manufacturing, they hope for their business to thrive, they have to sell that product at a profit. So there's a markup. So you need price level to continue going up for the businesses to thrive. So inflation went up last year marginally because of muted demand. If you can move to the next slide. So I talked about international oil prices. This is a key risk. You can see at the tail end of the graph, it's an upward movement. And that is, as at today, as we speak, on a year-to-date basis, oil prices have gone up by about 44%. And that is why we've seen the inflation numbers going up. Last year, we were a key beneficiary because we are a net importer of oil, and oil prices had gone down by 22%. So that was very positive for us. But this year, it's a key risk. On currency, last year, this is one of the key macroeconomic factors or indicators that are likely to really get hit when the dollar is strengthening. Last year, we did not perform so badly, as in the currency remained a bit stable, but depreciated towards the end of the year. And this is because we received a lot of support from diaspora remittances. So there were so many factors, and of course, there was also low demand in the country. Compared to other frontier markets, our currency did not perform so badly, but we depreciated by in excess of 7%. This year, we have the currency has appreciated marginally, that is exchanging to the dollar. We are currently at 108, changing to the dollar. And this is because of the massive support we have received from various factors. And one of them remains diaspora remittances, which have remained very healthy despite the pandemic. And of course, we have seen a lot of support coming in from IMF and World Bank as well. So that our outlook this year is that we'll have a stable currency, given the kind of support that we are still receiving to support our shilling. And then on short-term rates, I have talked about inflation being benign, or rather remaining quite low last year. Given that there are no inflationary pressures, and we also saw the currency, of course, was not really hit to a huge extent. And the fact that we also had very low demand in the country, meaning that people are not also accessing credit from the banks, there was so much money in the system. So that when we went to the auctions, or when we went to now buy assets from the government, that is the treasury bills and bonds, we saw interest rates decline because of that massive liquidity, given the low economic activity within the country. So short-term rates declined last year compared to the previous year. The next slide is on the bond yields. This graph is very important because a big portion of our assets are in bonds. And the simplest way to interpret it is when the rates decline, what it means is that the bond values, the value of our bonds go up. So it's a positive movement. When you see bond yields have declined, it means last year our bond valuations went up. So that was positive to our portfolio. Then on equity market, which is the last slide on macroeconomic overview. On equity market, I think this is where we really bled. We were not spared when foreigners were, of course, taking flight from emerging and frontier markets, and Kenya being one of them. We saw foreigners also exiting our markets. And there was so much confusion. And when it comes to the share markets, locals were not buying. So as foreigners dumped, we saw the prices really come off. And the NSC actually went down by 30% last year, and NASI by in excess of 8% last year. But that said, we saw some stocks, as expected, the likes of Safaricom, still doing well because there was a lot of adoption of technology. And Safaricom was one of the companies that really benefited from whatever was going on after the announcement of the pandemic. Then now moving on to just see what all that meant for your portfolio in terms of growth. So the market value of the DC scheme grew to 7.6 billion. And you can see we ensured also compliance within the period despite depressed markets. And you can see the biggest portion of our assets was in government securities at 68%. So just like what I'd told you, when you see rates coming down, what it basically meant is that our bond portfolio was really in the money because of that movement. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'll take in questions later on. I think I talked about where we are and our outlook, so we can skip that slide. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's clap for her again. I now call upon a custodian, it's Cooperative Bank, represented by Lydia Mushiri, to present the custodial report. Karibu, Lydia.
Thank you, Chairman, Board of Trustees, members, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm Lydia Mushiri, and I'll also mention that I did not come alone. I came with my colleague, who is Gaston. Gaston, simama usalimie members. Yes, Gaston is the account manager who looks after the day-to-day affairs of your scheme at Cooperative Bank. And also, let me also take this opportunity to thank the Board of Trustees for arranging a physical meeting. One of the things that we've seen in COVID is that lack of face-to-face interactions. And it's a pleasure to be here, to be able to hear the member questions, which for some reason during virtual interactions don't come out. I've been in the pension industry for 13 years, and every time I come to an AGM, I'm amazed at how much I get to learn from the questions that are asked, even as I consider myself an expert, and the questions are profound, practical in real life. So I'm also hoping that as I do my presentation, I'll be able to learn from you as much as, you'll be able to learn from me as much as I'm learning from you. And also, you can go to the next slide. As they put up the next slide, I'll say my fellow custodian in the DB scheme covered a bit of this, but I'll take you back to the time when I was in high school. One of the techniques that we learned in poetry was repetition. And repetition was to make sure that an idea sticks. So bear with me if I repeat some of the things you may have heard earlier. You can be sure after this, they will not evaporate. So our custodian report as Cooperative Bank has been done in accordance with the powers that we've been given under the regulations, the RBA regulations, and in particular what we do as a custodian, and these requirements is that we make sure that we have in place bank accounts in the name of the scheme where we keep the scheme financial assets. And number one is when your contributions are deducted from your payroll by the company, that money gets transferred to Cooperative Bank. Before now, it gets invested as the fund manager has told you it's invested. You also heard that you have properties. So we have physical title of those properties, and they are with us in the safe vaults of the bank. The other thing that we make sure we do as a custodian is to make sure that the proper investment instructions that have been received from the fund manager are settled on time. And what this is simply that when the fund manager decides to buy a T-bill, a bond, shares, and so on, we make sure that the money gets, if they are buying, we'll debit the money from the account, and we'll make sure your scheme gets credited with the asset, the shares, the bonds, and whatever. And the vice versa is true, that when there is a sale, we'll make sure the shares are sold and the money is received into the scheme so that it can be reinvested into the next most viable opportunity. We also do proper keeping of records, and the same is provided to the auditor so that they can verify for sure these assets we are saying that exist actually exist. It's not just funny creation. So they are actually assets that exist even when they're in electronic form. We collect the scheme's income. So all those assets, the dividends that they will pay, when it's bonds, they'll pay coupons. We make sure that even the interest from the deposits placed with various banks, not only Coop Bank, are also received timely and also credited to the scheme, and the cycle continues. We also report to the trustees at least quarterly, and in your scheme, the instances when we do twice a quarter. So we make sure that the Board of Trustees is well appraised about how the scheme is performing, and they continue to monitor on your behalf as you have put them in that fiduciary capacity. Lastly, we ensure that the benefits are paid, and how we do that is that the trustees will make a request for a certain amount of money to pay those who are retiring and so on, and will pay the lump sum and the trustees will pay to the end beneficiaries. So we work hand in hand a lot with the secretariat to make sure that you're able to get your money within the required timelines that have been given by the RBA, and that the investments that I've spoken about, which is also what is summarized about here, are done as is expected. So I will not do too much repetition because I am sure also people are a bit hungry and want to go for lunch. The last bit of our presentation talks about the assets that we are currently holding. So I'd like to confirm to the members that we have all the financial assets. I'll not go reading line by line. We hold the cash in the cash account. We hold deposits. When we place them with other banks, they give us a certificate of deposit. Equities, we have CDS accounts that are in the name of your scheme, and that's where your shares are credited, totaling to the amounts shown there. The treasury bonds, we have the CBK accounts, where treasury bonds are credited at Central Bank. And then for the offshore investments, we also send the money to the offshore for the private equity and get back the certificate of confirmation. And the properties, as I said, we hold the physical titles. So you'll also find that report at the back page of this booklet that has been circulated. So thank you very much, and let's continue to work together. Good day.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Now is the turn of Moses, the admin. Kindly come forward. I know Moses will just focus on DC. Yeah, please, in the interest of time.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm privileged again to stand before us, and this time taking us through the DC scheme. So my presentation will just be in 2 bits. It will not be a very long one. I will be focusing on scheme benefits and also the new baby on the block, so to speak, home ownership through the pension savings as a result of the recently amended law. So why we save for your retirement, I think we discussed this in the earlier meeting. Of course, is to ensure we have enough money for survival, and also we just emphasize that it's a long-term game. Slow and steady wins the race. The more or the longer you are in the scheme, the more you save, the more benefits you have for your retirement. And just also to mention that if you contribute for very, very many years, say 30 or 40 years, statistics show that you have a better net replacement ratio, which is the ratio between your final salary against what you're earning as a pension. So, like for example, if your last salary was 100,000 and then your pension is 40,000, we're talking of a replacement ratio of 40%. The Kenyan average is low; it is below 40%, and so it means work needs to be done there. So members, we have to contribute more. We have to contribute for longer. Because statistics also show that for those who contribute for 20 plus years, definitely more often than not have, between the ranges of 70 to 80% in terms of net replacement. So I encourage members to contribute more because you're allowed to do so, at the same time to exercise patience and not to keep drawing benefits. So when we're talking about these savings that we are putting aside, for your scheme currently, you're contributing 10%. And the AVC that I'm mentioning, which is additional voluntary contributions. These are contributions that you contribute over and above what is minimum. And, you do it based on your ability and also in recognition of the fact that, at the point where you retire, you will need, money. It's part of what you need. The employer has a generous contribution, 20%. And at this point, I want us to commend the sponsor for doing the maximum, contribution. Can we do so? Just a round of applause. It is not many schemes where they get the maximum contribution, and always when I see that, it has a soft spot in my heart. Again, now, in terms of now what you go home with, it will be a combination of your contribution, the employer's contribution, the investment returns less expenses that have been accrued by the scheme over time and even spent. So You can access your savings again, just the same way I mentioned earlier, upon retirement, leaving service, when you leave earlier, death, and emigration. So as we move on to the next slide, leaving service is when you leave before the age of 50. You're allowed to take full complement, 100% of your contribution, accumulated plus interest, and a maximum of 50% of the employer's contribution. A balance of the 50% that you do not access in the event that you exercise access can be accessed at retirement or can be transferred to your next scheme. Again, you can preserve your benefits until retirement age. It is not compulsory to access just because you've left service. Retirement, again, we are saying you're entitled to the whole benefit, but you may take 1/3 as a lump sum and 2/3 would be used to purchase an annuity. On emigration, I re-emphasize, if you leave the country with no present intention of coming back, you're allowed to be paid the full complement of your benefit as a lump sum. Death, in the unfortunate event of death, then your accumulated contributions, both employer side, will be paid as a lump sum to your beneficiaries, who you will have nominated, and again, the emphasis is on nominating the beneficiaries, being objective while at it, and ensuring you don't leave anyone out. So if you don't leave anyone out, then be rest assured that your choice or the allocation you give will be followed by the trustees. But the event that you don't do that, then they may follow a painstaking process of even having to then vary what your wishes are. So please make it easier for your trustees by nominating and nominating objectively. Tuko pamoja? But that does not mean that after this meeting, you walk around with the NOB form. I know the men where they go. It's on Friday. And you're showing people, look, I could add you here. That one is discouraged, okay? So again, we spoke about this. I want to go into the mortgage rules next. So for a long time, the retirement benefits, way back in 2009, we had changes in law that introduced the retirement benefit mortgage loans regulations. And by then, we were allowed as members of schemes to use up to 60% of our benefits as security to access or to get a mortgage. Unfortunately, the take-up has not been as much. I don't know why, but the banking fellows tell me that, the house itself is already a security. They may not need the one in the pension. And so recently in 2020, we are now, so the amendments that have come in, and members are now allowed direct access. So there's a, we are now allowed to access actual cash to purchase residential houses. Next slide, as we go on, is that, there are a number of highlights in this. The amount that we can access, and this will be paid to an entity that is selling you the residential house. First, it is 40% of your pension savings. 2, it is a maximum of 7 million shillings. Remember, as with all access, tax will be payable for any amount that you access. So members, keep that at the back of your mind. And again, it may be subject to the value of the residential house. So you cannot come and say that I want to access 7 million because it is the maximum, and the house you're purchasing is 4 million. That will be declined, okay? The other thing is that there is emphasis that that residential house should have been certified for occupation, and also the AVCs that we keep talking about year in, year out, the additional monies that you put in, can also be used to augment the benefit that you get. And just again, so that we don't have to re-emphasize again, is members are allowed to use this option only once, okay? So moving on in terms of how this will be getting done, there are members who will not be eligible, those who have already reached retirement age, members who have previously used the pensions as a collateral. Number 2, if you have an existing facility, you cannot now say, let me access and offset that facility. It is prohibited under the law. And trustees are the ones who've been mandated to ensure that they review and approve applications. And one of the most critical things to note here is that the title of the property or the residential house that you get will be encumbered. This means that it will be held by the scheme. So you cannot use it for other commercial transactions. So when will it be released to you? It is released to you when you when you retire. But to any other person, it only may be released under the following circumstances. When a member dies, or when a member is permanently disabled. Remember, when you do that, then we normally say you are entitled to ill health retirement, or, because you are not unable to continue to work the way you would work. So what happens? The first step is going to be a member is going to apply and is going to be required to produce some documents. Of course, the application will be in some prescribed form that you will get as a member, and you will need some documents. For example, the mother title, you will need an architect certificate, certificate of incorporation, of the institution selling it to you. Remember, it is being sold to you by an institution. Again, evidence of payment, evidence of availability of funds for any benefit. For instance, your 40% reaches only 2 million and you're purchasing a house of 5 million. Evidence of where the balance of the money is going to come from. And of course, any other documents as trustees may require, because they're required to do due diligence, which is step number 2, where they're going to check the title document against, what is there within the various entities like lands. And they're also going to ensure that the residential house is valued properly, because, again, we want to ensure that it's transparent and a process that does not have any flaws in terms of valuations and so on, because that forms part of their fiduciary responsibility. Of course, they're also going to verify the institution from which the purchase of the residential house is to be made, and they're going to take any additional measures they deem fit. As mentioned earlier by the chair, this is a process that is ongoing. At the point where they are done with what exactly they'll be looking for, members will be given further appraisal. So moving on to the last one, it will be the approval and disbursement, and this is expected within the law to be done within 90 days of application. Okay? So how will you know it has been approved? The funds will be dispersed to the member or to the institution selling the house to complete the transaction, and the title is going to be encumbered. Remember, again, the house we are buying is a residential house for what? Residential house means the house mtu anafanya nini? Anaishi ndani. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I come to the end of my presentation, and I challenge us. To make use of these opportunities, and I will leave us with a parting shot. Numbers chapter 8, verse 24. Who has a phone that has a Bible in it? Or who has a Bible in the phone? Members, anyone with a Bible on the phone? Yes. Get us the book of Numbers chapter 8, and the member will read. Chapter 8, verse 24. I want us to read 24, 25, and 26. Is there a microphone for the gentleman? Thank you.
Okay. Numbers 8, 24, 25, and 26. This is New King James Version. This is what pertains to the Levites. From 25 years old and above, one may enter to perform service in the work of the tabernacle of meeting. And at the age of 50 years, they must cease performing this work. And they must cease.
Any other version, what do they say they must? They must? They must? It is not a matter of the sponsor or the trustees sitting here. It is a matter that is divine.
Divine, yes.
And then what happens in the next verse?
In the next verse, 26, they may minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of meeting, to attend to needs, but they themselves shall do no work.
Okay. So members, let us prepare ourselves for that time. And that time we will become advisors, as we have been told, isn't it? Yeah. We will be sages and vessels of wisdom, isn't it? So, tafadhali tujipange, tujitegemee. Sema tujitegemee. Tujipange, Asanteni.
Thank you very much, Moses. You're 50 years in ngumu. But I think we hear you loud and clear. Now we are wrapping up with service providers, and I will call Madam Teresa. Sorry, we have the second poll. I've just been reminded. Sorry. Can you project it, TS?
IT project the second poll. Chair, this second poll, we are looking at the enrollment of members for AVC. So why have you not enrolled for additional voluntary contributions? These are contribution above the current your contribution of 10% of your basic pay. So I have enrolled. I do not know how AVC is or what AVC is. I do not know the process to enroll. I am not interested. So the question is, why have you not enrolled for additional voluntary contribution, AVC, which is contribution above your normal 10% contribution? I have enrolled. That is first one. Next one, I do not know what AVC is. I do not know the process to enroll. I am not interested. So, Chair, we have a number of members who contribute for AVC, not a big number, and we have been looking forward to increase members' contribution from the 10 through AVC, and this should be able to give us a good output of why the initiative is not taken well. IT, please project the results. Chair, 9 members have enrolled. 22% or 23 members of the one who have answered, I do not know what AVC is. 39%, I do not know the process to enroll. And 30%, I am not interested in enrolling. Chair, this is a very interesting outcome. However, it let us know how to go about member education towards increasing this additional voluntary contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, TS. I now call upon the scheme auditors to confirm the financial position of the scheme as of 31st December 2020, together with the audit report. This will be done by Teresa Washira of Deloitte & Touche. Karibu, Teresa.
Thank you, Chairman, Board of Trustees, members, good afternoon. My name is Teresa Ashira from Deloitte & Touche, and we have the pleasure of reporting to you our report. It's presented on the annual report on pages 36, 37, and 38. And the report details our opinion as a starting point. Then it also details the responsibilities of the trustees in regards to the financial statements, the auditor's responsibility, and then at the end it has the signing partner who was in charge of the opinion. So if you allow me, members, the opinion that is presented ahead is what we had on the financial statements, and it's from pages 11 to 28, but on the booklet, it's from pages 36 to 38. So if you allow me to read, we have audited the accompanying financial statements of KenGen defined contribution, DC scheme 2012, in brackets, the scheme, set out on pages 11 to 28 on the financial statements. And on this booklet, the financials are presented from pages 39 to 56, which comprise the statement of net assets available for benefits as at 31st December 2020, and the statement of changes in the net assets available for benefits, and statement of cash flows for the year then ended, and a summary of significant accounting policies and other explanatory notes. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial transactions of the scheme during the year ended 31st December 2020, and the disposition at that date of its assets and liabilities. Other than liabilities to pay, retirement, and other benefits falling due after the end of the year, in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards and the requirements of the Kenyan Retirement Benefit Act. That is our opinion. It was not a qualified opinion, and we take this opportunity to thank the trustees and the members. And thank you, and have a good afternoon.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Teresa. I propose that the annual reports and the financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2020 be taken as read. Now I'll go to the minimum agenda items. I wish to take you through the following minimum agenda items as stipulated in the RBA Act. During the year, that is 2020, the meetings held for the full board and committees are as follows. For the full board meeting, we had 8 of them. Admin and Communication Committee, we had 5. Audit and Risk, we had 4. And Investment and Strategy Committee, we had 7. The trustees' remuneration is as disclosed in the financial report, page 33. Currently, the scheme pays sitting allowance of 28,000 to the chairman and Kenya shillings 24,500 to the board members, all net of taxes, similar just to what applies to DB. Due to the current challenging economic conditions in the country, and in line with the strategic objective to ensure administrative expenses are under control, the board does not wish to review its remuneration. Additionally, I would like also to confirm that there were no changes in the benefit structure and contribution rate in the year under review. That is it. Now we move to the next session. That is the Q&A session. Just like what we did in DB, we will first give priority to those who have questions with us here, the physical. And as we do that, I will encourage those who are attending this meeting virtual to continue raising or putting across the questions that they will want an answer from us. So with that, then MC, kindly move around the mic so that those who have questions will be able to respond. Seems the questions were exhausted in the first meeting or what? Maybe meanwhile, as you think over, TS, do you have any question, the virtual that through the chat? Maybe you can be responding to them.
Chair, we had one question, and I go through the question. It came from James Nyandingisi. He is worried that our 68% of our investment is on treasury bonds, and is asking, does it pose any risk? I would wish to confirm to James that government investment, as my teacher told me, they are risk-free. They might be small risk. However, the board has a diversification strategy towards reducing this exposure from 68%. We are venturing in private equity, in property and offshore. However, this investment to alternative investment require good due diligence before investment. So the reason why we have taken long to reduce this exposure in treasury bonds is the due diligence required to invest in these alternative assets. However, the 68% is on very free risk assets and which are very liquid. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me reiterate again. The bonds are the most safest investment assets. Just to answer what you asked and also those the members who are present. So it seems then we've exhausted the question, and I hope we take it positively that we've done a commendable job, and together with the service providers. That's why we've had only one question. Now, I now beg to move the Chairman's Annual General Meetings report, its proposals, recommendations, and presentations made by various stakeholders be adopted and form part of this meeting. May I have a proposer, please, and kindly just state your name for record purpose. A proposer, please, and then good, just straight away in front there.
I'm Mary Motava. I propose.
Thank you very much, Mary. Can we have a seconder? A seconder?
I am Enoch Biama. I second.
Thank you very much, Enoch Biama. We used to work with him in the same office before I took off. Asante, thanks a lot, Enoch, Knox. Now, maybe before we go to vote of thanks, there are some issues, a bit of them which I needed to highlight. Maybe. I know Moses has done a wonderful job by taking you through this new product that is with us, that is the mortgage facility. And as I earlier mentioned, you've been given a deadline of September by RBA to have this particular facility up and running. Now, as trustees, what is our position? I think we've pronounced our position in various forums about this particular facility. And even maybe before I even talk about it, I know maybe some of you are salivating after you are told now you can access 40% of your entitlement. What that is, if you now decide to have this facility, we'll be able to let go 40% of what you have contributed, what the employer has contributed, and the return on investment. We've done our homework through the Secretariat, and averagely, we are a bit better than other schemes. Our 40% is around 1.5, 1.6 million. So, what you're being told, you can only access 1.4 million, and that is the money you expected to go and purchase a house, and that particular house or a property, we shall have to keep the title for you. That is very little. There is no house you can get a 1.6 million, unless maybe this side. But I've been here for long, and I know prices are also going up. What does that mean? You look at the bigger picture. 40%, if all of you decide to take 40% of this facility, we shall have liquidity challenges as a pension fund. And that will even affect our return. So our position as trustees, yes, we shall do what the law, what we are supposed to do as per the law. But we are discouraging you from taking this facility. We are discouraging you as your leaders. Because there is no how you can work for. You can imagine, and the other side effect, if you access 40% now, that means ultimately it will affect your pension. Tuko pamoja? So that means you will get your pension on retirement less 40%. And you're already being told the replacement ratio in the country is less than 30%. Fortunately, for our scheme, we are averaging now 50%. That means if you retire, you'll be able to get your pension will be 50% of your last salary. And this is what we are working on as a scheme. And this has really been put on well by Moses. That if you want a better replacement ratio, please put in more and more money in the form AVC. Like I've seen in the poll, quite a big chunk are saying they don't understand the process. TS kazi kwako and your team to make sure that you are able to roll out and let the members understand how you are supposed to do this. So with more contribution, and in the last AGM I said the same, and you remember me, put in more and more money so that your replacement ratio goes up. So this particular mortgage, what we are saying, while you are still working, we have other facilities the company provides. Even Stima Sacco, that's why we are putting in a lot of money in Stima Sacco. So for us, some of us, this particular facility, to us we feel it's not, the law is there, yes. If you come, we'll give you. But the consequences later, you will live with them. As I finish, let me thank the employer and or first the regulator. The regulator has made the pension scheme, the pension industry in this country be tick. You are talking of 1.5 now trillion. What 1.5 trillion? The government, the World Bank are now even pushing us. They want to access this money so that we can contribute in infrastructure development. But we are also saying we are reluctant. We cannot put in our money on building roads, and we are not assured what will be the return and the security of that money. So we appreciate a lot the regulator. They have brought sanity in the industry, and that is why, for now, I think we are happy, and especially the employer. Let me, in my other position that I'm holding as a union representative, the employer, we have got a very good goodwill from the employer. They have done a remarkable job. They have not interfered with our pension scheme. We are among the highest. We are among the pension schemes that the employer is contributing a whopping 20%. The employer deserves a clap for that. So we are doing very well, and we are happy about that. And the sponsor is not interfering. Just like if you compare with what other pension schemes are doing. So, Madam CEO, we really want to thank you and pass our regards to the board. And I know Sitat is here. We really want to thank the board for that support. As I conclude, you know, Madam CEO came here, stood, and she talked about the company performance. She now removed her role as a CEO and spoke as a sponsor. And the moment I leave here, if I sit down and I also not mention anything about my other role, I think some people will be very much disappointed. Sindio? Sindio kidogo tu sindio? Yeah, without, I know there are many other people from different cadres or constituencies. Our relationship with the employer is good. We are doing very well with Madam, with Serem. I know a word mentioned about issues of CBA that has delayed. I can tell you the employer is willing. The employer appreciates. What we are telling the employer, you made 17 billion. We need a share of that. The employer is saying, Ernest, GS, we are ready to sit down and share. But can you handle for us SRC? That's the challenge that we are facing. Madam is willing, the board is willing, but they are saying now there's this animal called SRC. So members, pray for us as we continue pushing this SRC through our own union and also KOTU. We see how this particular cake we can share. The employer will want us to do more and more. And the only way the employer knows you guys will put on more effort is we share equitably the profit we made, the 17 billion plus. Sindio? So I'm optimistic that maybe through the negotiation, the process that we are trying to push, we may see the light at the end of the tunnel. But it is difficult. It is difficult because this blanket decree from Treasury is not right, that public sector unions, no salary increment for the next 2 years, which we are saying is not right. Yes, there are companies that made negative, even within the energy sector, and I represented them. It's difficult to negotiate, but there are others that did well. So these are things that we are trying to work out. But even as we do that, I encourage you, let's continue putting on more effort. You work well, get better benefits. At the end of the day, we shall retire smiling. Otherwise, with that, I will now do a vote of thanks. As we come to the close of the AGM, I would like to send out my gratitude to the Secretariat team for their dedication to ensure that this AGM was a success. I also thank the Eastern Hydro team for the support accorded to the scheme and their hospitality. I also wish to thank members who have remained glued to their screens by joining us virtually, and Eastern Hydros, our host, who managed to join us physically. Finally, I thank my fellow board members for sacrificing their time to join us during this important event. I may not be able to thank everybody by name, and hence I say, asantini sana sana. As we wrap up or wind up, can we now, TS, go to the third poll, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We now learn the last poll. And this is the question. Upon retirement, which of the following option would you select to receive the 2/3 of your benefits payment? Upon retirement, because a member receives a lump sum of 1/3 and receives 2/3, which is used to purchase a monthly income. So the question is, upon retirement, which of the following option would you select to receive the 2/3 of your benefits payment? Number 1, an annuity paid through an insurance company. Number 2, an income drawdown managed in-house by the scheme. Number 3, an income drawdown managed by a different service provider. I do not understand any of the above. The question is, upon retirement, which of the following option would you select to receive the 2/3 of your benefits payment? That is the 2/3 that is used to purchase your regular income in retirement. Answer number 1, A, is an annuity paid through an insurance company, an income drawdown managed in-house by the scheme, an income drawdown managed by a different service provider. I do not understand any of the above. This question, Chair, will help us as we structure our income drawdown for the scheme, and the members joining us virtually. We want you to do the selection of which we prefer for the 4 answers there, so that we can be able also to guide us as we move forward, and request now IT to project the answers or the outcome. Chair, as it's there, 16% an annuity through an insurance company, 60% of overwhelming 60% an income drawdown managed in-house by the scheme, 7% or 6% an income drawdown managed by a different service provider, 70% don't understand the above. Is this also a confirmation that we need to move fast as we set up the income drawdown this year, so that we can be able to offer this service to our members? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very, very much, TS. And just off the cuff, there was a time we were told I know we have our able chair of Steamer Circle, and maybe we need to change our style here. They say the Empower, a big chunk of the members who take money on Friday, amen, on Friday. Then on Monday, those who contribute more are ladies. So let's try to change that. Otherwise, I'm concluding. There being no other business of which due notice has been given, may I take this opportunity to declare the meeting officially closed. I now invite Jeffrey Kamanza to come and close this 2021 AGM with a word of prayer, and also pray for our lunch and those who are traveling back to their respective areas. Thank you very much. Kwaherini.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's kindly stand and pray. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kwa jina la Allah mwenye kurehemu. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu Mola wa haki, tunakuomba, tunakushukuru kwa neema ya afya, tunakushukuru kwa neema ya uwezo wa kukamilisha kikao hiki chetu cha leo. Tunakuomba ya Allah utujalie busara na hekima ya kufanya maamuzi bora katika maisha yetu ya baadaye. Ya Allah, tunakuomba ujalie kampuni hii, utuongoze, ujalie mshikamano, ujalie shirikiano, ujalie upendo, ujalie hekima, ujalie na busara. Na sote kitu kimoja kama jamii katika kampuni hii. Tunakuomba ya Allah utulinde na maradhi, uwaponye wote walio wagonjwa, walio manyumbani kwao, waweze kuinuka na kurudia shughuli zao za kawaida kutokana na hili gonjwa la corona. Ya Allah, tunawaombea viongozi wetu, wajalie afya, wape busara, wape hikma, wape maamuzi bora na wape uwezo wa kuamua yaliyo bora katika kampuni hii. Ee Mola wetu, tunakuomba uongoze wote wanataraji mema kutoka kwako, waongoze wa kuamua yaliyo mema ya kuendeleza kampuni hii ili tuweze kuinuka juu sote. Subhanaka rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Shukran. Amin.